Hello, 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 and welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder with me, Levi Lupu. I hope you had a nice weekend, and I hope I don't know, you're looking forward for this week. Um, yeah, I don't know, you just got like cool stuff going on. I assume, or I would hope that you do. If not, don't worry, neither do I. I've been off uh, for a while, still struggling with many things, and I honestly feel like I think that besides of financial well-being and work well-being, I've got everything. But those two, which are quite important, especially in today's economy, um, are not going so well. Everything else is going perfect. Perfect? I don't know, but good enough. I've been speaking with my psychiatrist just before the weekend, and he's not so hot on the how the things are going at the moment. So I'm actually seeing him again in 2 weeks, which is very unusual because I used to see him almost every 6 to 8 weeks for the past year or so, just because again things were kind of better, and then now they are strange. I don't want to say they are worse because again they were worse, then they got better. Now I'm in I would say a healthier spot, but I'm still, struggling with just getting out of bed. It just feels like a nightmare. I don't know. I feel like I'm not tired enough to overthink things and to have some terrible nightmares, but I am tired enough to not be able to, go out and have fun or even work, like properly. It's yeah, I feel like I sit on a couch and then I complain about how much my back hurts and how tired I feel about sitting on a couch. But I tried this past week, although I think the opposite action worked quite a bit, mostly because I got out of bed, um, got changed into like running gear, but instead of running, I just went out for a walk around the house and then came back in. That's as far as I can take it for now. I was able to, to go to some gigs, but that was mostly because I just felt like I just needed it, and I was relying on other people to almost keep me accountable to it. Where I'd have to like ask friends to join and make sure that we have like a catch up or something beforehand so that I don't feel like I let anyone down by not going. It's and it look it's doing wonders. I feel like I have some friends who used to do comedy and they stopped because of the toll that was taken on their mental health, while I feel like to me it's helping a lot. It's really doing wonders, and it's been going kind of well. Like I had some good shows, but nothing too crazy again because I just want to take it easy and I try to just take things kind of like one at a time, sort of. But look, folks, don't worry about me. I'm having some amazing people around me, and I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best, and I think if you're listening to this on Monday afternoon, I am in therapy. So um, we're getting that. We're getting things covered. Then again, it's much better than it's been a couple of weeks ago. I am not great, but I'm better, and I'll take that given the circumstances. That's fine. Now, in today's episode, you are going to listen me to me. Sorry, speaking with Chris Ali. Sounds familiar. If it sounds familiar, as in the last name, then that's because he's Matthew Ali's twin brother. But look, it was very different conversations. Well, very, I don't know, but there were different conversations. It was a wonderful conversation. Just putting it together, um, it just reminded me of how much I enjoyed us speaking. And look, check out his work. And also, if you are a London listener, he's got a big show for the OM comedy. Um, so I will leave the bio and I'll leave the social media handle of the comedy night as well in the description, because I think their night is next weekend or the weekend after. Anyway, you know what? Just check the bio and check out the night once again for anyone living in London or planning to come to London. You know, um, I did a night, and it was I did one of the one a I did one of Chris's nights, and it was wonderful atmosphere. And I'm sure this is even a bigger venue. You know, it's a bigger show, so I'm sure it's only gonna get better. So look, yeah, check out the night, listen to the episode. I'll catch you before we wrap it up. Enjoy. Perfect. So, Chris, how's it going?
Good man, good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, really appreciate it. You got a nice flat here,
Thank
which is
you.
great. I've been telling you, it's absolutely yeah, it's really lovely. And yeah, no, this is the third time I've been asked as a guest on a podcast. So
You're saying the first time you've been asked, what happened? The first, what did you ask and you declined the first two times? Or?
no, I was on
I was
them.
joking.
So yeah, yeah. I guess it sounded like that. No, I did. This is the second time I've been asked for a podcast for doing stand up. Well, because of not specifically for it, but I did the open mic podcast with Mark Cox.
Okay,
He does one for stand up comedy or open mic stuff. I
right.
was the very first guest, which was nice. And then
Very nice.
I did one a few years ago because my actual job is I'm a facilities manager, and I got asked to do a podcast, some boring podcast about facilities management and sustainable procurement because
What is procurement?
like procurement is the purchasing, I guess, of any services or product, right?
Oh, yeah,
And I
yeah.
used to work for Greenpeace, and I kind of got this interest in sustainable procurement because
Ah,
that's kind of like the big thing in office management is obviously, or in the world really,
yeah,
about sustainability, trying to
yeah.
make things a bit more ecologically friendly. And I was working, or one of the suppliers I used was a sustainable office supplier company, and just in conversation with them, they suggested me for something, and I did this talk, and then I got asked for a podcast. So I'm not interested in
Interesting.
none of that stuff anymore, but I think I sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
Well, I was going to say that one of the things that really like surprised me when you came in, um, it was when you were like when you said about like when you looked at like the kitchen furniture and you're like, oh, I really like this sort of stuff.
Yeah, amazing.
And I was gonna ask you how did how did you get into like why do you
Antiques.
yeah, or like not yeah, why, but not in a judgmental way, why, but just like yeah, how did you get into
Just
this?
TV. Like I always loved watching sort of antique shows on TV. One of my
Oh,
favorite shows is this show called Salvage Hunter.
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I
So
have heard of it. I think I've seen bits of it, but I've
yeah,
not properly
it's
watched it.
on Quest. If anyone's out there want to watch it, in the UK, I don't know what it is anywhere else. And it's this guy called Drew Pritchard who is starting to become a bit of an arsehole, I think. Uh, he always seemed quite nice, and then he got his teeth done, and he was a bit of an arsehole before, but he was kind of charming. But
Yeah,
now he's just kind of really gone into full dickhead mode. So hopefully I never meet him because that would be a big deal for me, and he hear this and tell me he's a cunt. But I just love watching. I've always loved watching shows with antiques and furniture. I don't know why. And
fair.
like I've got this whiskey cupboard at my house, which I bought from an auction house. It's like 60 quid. I think I
Yeah,
was the only person that bought it, but that thing will go with me everywhere. I've just always loved furniture. I don't know why. An old kind of furniture
Fair enough.
placed. I really liked how kind of because that set of drawers you have in your kitchen could kind of go anywhere really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so even where your choice of placing it was interesting to me. So
Thank you. No, because I I don't think I've ever told any because I never had to. But I my first degree was in I did like wood manufacturing. Actually, I did a sustainability and like wood manufacturing degree.
okay,
So basically, I'm like I have this thing where I'm saying that I could have been Jesus because because I was also
because your mum's a
like
whore. No,
well that's the thing. Well, one, we don't know who my dad is.
all right,
Allegedly, it could have been God, but I
could have
mean,
been,
I actually I had a theory for a few years that was King Charles because he visited Romania in 1996, and I was born in 1997. So but I was born in May 1997. So it means that around the time that he was in Romania, he could have had.
Well, did your mum sleep with him?
She said no, but I don't trust
No,
her because
just like Mary. So
yeah.
yeah,
So well, that's the thing. And then I was like, but then and also I'm technically a carpenter, so
yeah.
you know. But anyway, yes, that's the thing. I my first degree was carpenting. Carpenting, is that the word?
A carpenter or
Carpenter,
yeah,
whatever
woodwork.
degree. Yeah, woodwork engineer degree,
Nice.
and but I've never put it in practice.
Yeah, I mean, he does really.
But yeah, that's as close as I got, and I appreciate old furniture. And also, you should go to Romania, because we have so much. Like you go to like an working class or like just like a family's house, you
Mm.
can have like the probably sometimes you can have the nicest flats or like new builds, but they have the oldest furniture because I
Mm.
think in Romania we hate to throw away furniture.
Okay.
So you'll have again a building with like a I don't know like a lift that just you do this with your fingers, and you just get transported to your flat.
Yeah.
Where if you walk in a flat, you'll have probably like someone like someone's auntie's uh, tea set
Yeah.
and TV stand or whatever.
Yeah. Or some Flintstone type table or something.
We love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. 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 What? So like, there's no IKEAs in Romania.
I think they are now. They are like
Yeah.
now. You obviously they um, become a thing, or they became a thing maybe in the last I don't know 10 years. But even then, it's still a combination. That's like you
Mm.
can have the newest like the thinnest TV in the world, but you will be sitting on again
Yeah.
the table that you inherited from your grandparents,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which I in one hand I love.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I want to gradually over time just kind of build furniture that I'm going to have and hold for years and years and go from me from kind of
nice.
place to place and then yeah, be able to because there's nothing better. Like good furniture is I think the reason why a lot of people don't appreciate it is because they don't understand how good people. We're just so accustomed to things just breaking.
Yeah,
We're so accustomed for being like, oh, this is going to last a few years, and then we replace it and buy another one. And then you can go somewhere and you'll go like to, I mean, in Salvage Hunters, he does the exact same thing where he'll go to some storeroom in the middle of nowhere
yeah.
where they've had some stuff for ages and buy some chairs that are like 100 years old. And they've just been sitting in the cupboard. They've not really degraded much. All you got to do is dust them off, maybe a bit of polish. If you did that with a chair these days, that thing would degrade if I just farted on it strong enough, wouldn't it? So,
Which is true, yeah, because that's what I was gonna. I agree with you as well. Which it showed it stands the test of time.
yeah,
The fact that you can just move it around and do all these things. But that's what I'm saying. You're gonna love it.
nice.
If you. But you were saying that you're doing the
Facilities manager, yeah.
facilities manager. But then how did you get into comedy?
So I guess the initial way was I signed up to a comedy course. So most people that around the comedy scene, I guess, will see my. I don't know if you know my twin brother does stand up
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, Matthew Ali.
He's
And
been on.
has he been on?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. How was that episode? We'll see who gets more likes or listens. Um, how was it? Was it good?
Well, it was a good episode. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He's got a lot of mental health issues, so sort
No, but he talked very highly of you though. So
oh wow. Well, there you go. I should give that a listen then. Yeah, yeah. But Matthew actually signed up to a comedy course, and I've said this story a few times, but sort of usually around Christmas, I I like to play poker, and I used to play a lot more when I was younger. And generally around Christmas time is the only time I find these days to play poker. And so anyway, I played poker during the Christmas of 2021, I think it was. During that time, Matthew signed up to the comedy course, and I think that week I'd won about sort of £800-900, and
Very nice.
the course was £275. And then he told me, and instantly I was like, oh, so scared. But signed up as well. So then we both did the same comedy course, which was the comedy school, 6 week course, 3 hours every Thursday. Did that, had a showcase at the end. And then I think I had 2 weeks off and then basically just been gigging ever since. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not. What was it like then? Like, well, was it that you again you just did it because again it was just like a thing of the moment, or have you ever planned beforehand? Have you ever thought of yourself or like, oh, I'll do stand up comedy?
Yeah. I think realistically, I have thought about it over the years, but if I think I've been wanting to do this since I was a kid. Really, it's kind of one of those stories, isn't it? Where
Yeah.
this is my lifelong dream, and I've only really been saying that in the last year or so, really kind of admitting it. But yeah, I've, God, as long as I can remember, I always remember my mum saying, "Oh, you're a little comedian, ain't you?" And I could always kind of make people laugh, I guess. And I used to love Lee Evans. Do you know Lee Evans?
Lee Evans,
Yeah, he's a stand-up comic from like when I grew up in the '90s. National
in
treasure.
English.
Yeah, yeah, very English. He was in something
It's,
about Mary.
it sounds very familiar, but like I
Yeah,
can't put a face to the name,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
sounds very familiar.
yeah. I mean, if you was born in this country in the '90s, you'd probably have a really good understanding of who he was. He was like the Michael McIntyre of like the '90s. He was the biggest comic on TV, or at least one of them, to me at least. And
Interesting.
I just loved him, which is crazy because I'll do my comedy is nothing like his. He's very animated. He sweats all the time. He's doing impressions. He's doing a load of stuff. But I just loved him, and I've just always loved comedy. I thought about doing it at times over the years, but was a bit scared to, I guess. And I think just when Matthew sort of made that offer or told me about it, I mean, maybe I would never have done it if it wasn't for him. But yeah, once he'd signed up, I just did that and it's
And
kind
what
of
if, and then since then you were just like, okay, it starts here, or like you were just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep like, I don't know what's the saying, like putting like, I'll keep my foot on the gas, I guess.
it's been a progression to it really. I think actually admitting that it's like a lifelong dream or something that you really want to do, even trying to pursue it in a way that is trying to be a professional for me, I'm not as bullish to say, oh yes, it's kind of been a bit of a like there's been stages to it. So once I did the comedy course, there was a lot of I remember during it there was a lot of discussion around, oh, you need to start booking your gigs now so you can really carry on from doing the showcase. But I needed to focus on the showcase and just do that and have that the point of focus.
Yeah.
Once I done that, I started signing up to gigs. Then you kind of gig in, and then most I reckon most people that start doing stand up, I don't know if you had the same thing. You have this period where you think, well, what am I actually doing it for then? I really enjoyed it still. Obviously, I wanted to get better. Then did that. After about 6 months, I started saying that I wanted to pursue it like I wanted to be a professional and put as much energy as I can into it with what I had really, because I'm quite attentive to the sort of main aspects of my life. And then this year, actually, probably in the last few months, I've only really started feeling like, do you know what? I think I'm actually a half decent comic. And now I'm starting to really feel like, okay, what is it how do I want to be a stand up comic? Not rather, do I want to do it, but what do I want to be and what are my points of focus as a stand up comic?
And what was that like? How did you how did you get to I guess this sort of mindset, or like to have this as your main thought?
Um, I guess, yeah, that's an interesting question, really. I think very early on, I realized that it's quite an exhausting thing to do,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not used to I'm used to being exhausted. Like I used to work two, three, four jobs for years,
Wow.
right? So and only recently have I only really worked one job. Uh, so doing this second job in terms of being stand up, even though I'm not earning really any money from it, it's not foreign to me.
Yeah.
So I really have to. rationalize it and make it sustainable to me. And I realized that quite early on because I'd been spending all these years doing all these different things. You just kind of learn, how do I need to approach every day, every week, every month in terms of making it manageable for me. And with the stand up, I'm not thinking too far ahead, but I'm not kind of not allowing myself to grow. And it's just basically from a general approach to life in terms of what's most sustainable. How am I going to progress? And then when I get to a certain level, what's my goal then from then really? And the first aim was to kind of get competent. And once I got competent, I was like, right, actually, do I have a shot at being a good comic? And then I started feeling like I was doing all right and going from there.
How did you judge competent? Because you competent, it sounds like you can be a very again, everyone has a different definition, I guess.
Yeah.
So, like, what's your definition for competent? Like,
Well,
how did you in within yourself, of course?
yeah, well, I mean, well, you say within ourselves, but I think for us, if you are aware enough, our feedback is very simple. If you get laughs, then you know you're competent. That's it.
Yeah,
And I think some people potentially perform and don't get the laughs that they think they're getting or something or other. I was quite harsh with
which is
myself
yeah.
and I always wanted to be good. So I just based it off of that, the feedback that I was getting and how I felt around it. Um, there was one thing that I didn't realize, which was important to me. And I think in terms of my progression was the feedback I got from comics because quite early on, I don't know if I was necessarily getting what I wanted from the audience, but I always
Yeah.
felt like I got decent feedback from other comics. And then there was a period last summer where, for a few months, every time people were seeing me, they were saying, "That's the best I've ever seen you," and that was quite
Oh,
surprising. It kept coming and kept coming. So, I guess that's what it's been up to this point. But really, I'm still learning on what is the right metrics of feedback and the points that I need to understand because it depends on where you are. In an open mic, you can really. I've got so comfortable that it can fool you into thinking you're much better than you are
yeah,
because the audience you have are mostly comics, and then the feedback you're getting is just basically because you're comfortable and
yeah,
you look like you know what you're talking
yeah,
about,
yeah,
rather than the actual jokes. Then you take them jokes out to a willing audience, and you're like, these jokes aren't fucking working. So you got to understand where you are, and I don't know. I try to think about it a lot in terms of where I'm at and what I'm receiving on a daily basis because sometimes you bomb in it,
yeah. Of
and I'm
course,
very susceptible to that, and I can take that. But if I was bombing on a regular basis, I'd probably have to reconsider. But it hasn't been that bad so far.
very good. And well, you were saying something really interesting earlier about how you've always been doing like multiple jobs at one time. How did that, like, how come, like, are you, like, do you, is that something, because is it something that you like naturally enjoy, or were you just like drawn
Fuck
into it,
no,
or
no, no, no. Purely out of necessity. Um, yeah, it's funny that because like I remember talking to someone not too long, a few years back actually, dog walker. Used to take when I had a dog, take him to a park, and I'd see this woman quite regularly. Never know her name, still don't know her name to this day, and I see her as well. Probably known her for about almost 20 years.
no
Ridiculous, yeah,
way?
yeah, shocking. I should know her name. And I was talking about sort of working multiple jobs, and she said that I was industrious, and oftentimes like people say I'm like a hard worker and stuff. I feel like I'm like naturally an incredibly lazy person and I really have to push myself. And there
Yeah,
was a period where, in my early 20s, well, I went to uni for a couple of years and I ended up dropping out, and I wasn't really doing anything for a few years really, and it wasn't great for me. I didn't feel great about myself.
yeah.
I think like, and I don't know. We could touch on this sort of stuff in terms of my own personal progression with this stuff. I didn't feel great, and really, it was just kind of like I started working, and then I got more jobs, and I just got more and more busy because one, I couldn't get a full-time job because it the time when I like dropped out of uni, it it became quite hard to get jobs if you didn't have a degree,
Oh,
and there
okay.
weren't a lot of jobs, and a lot of people were struggling. It was like the recession, so it was really really hard to get work. So then I picked up work where I could, and essentially
What?
I had 4 jobs for about 2.5 years, and then that kind of I ended up getting a 9 to 5 with a second job. Sometimes had a third, and then basically had 2 jobs for quite a while, and it was just out of necessity really, like to make sure I earned enough money. It became a habit. Um, it wasn't that exhausting, but I was tired for the most part, and I don't know. It gave me enough money to do the things I needed to do.
What? And then wow. That's amazing because you
Really?
know especially the fact, when you said that thing about how, if you ask me, like, naturally I see myself as a lazy person, and it's such an, because sometimes I get I think in the way I guess relate to that is that people sometimes, when I go like, oh, I came here when I was, I just turned 17, and people are, oh my god, like, how, that's so courageous. And I was like, no, I kind of like, I had to go, like the way I see things when they happen to me, it's more of a, again, I had to do this job, or like I had to do that thing. I don't see like there was a choice of like, oh, do you want to make in this situation, do you want to make money by staying at home, or do you want to make money by working? I would have taken the stay at home money.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I mean, this is what's so ridiculous about it as well, is because, like, I smoke weed, I chill out. I could easily be like a degenerate drunk weed smoker, just chilling, watching TV. But then you know what comes with that. Like, I don't know. Like, I can do that, but I know that after some time, it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't suit you. Really, it's not good for you as an individual.
Yeah,
You're not necessarily going to be happy. But then when there's a call to action, are you the person that does action?
yeah,
Yeah, recognizing you need to do something, but then actually doing it is another thing. And I think that's what's different is between one person versus another. People that do stuff and people that don't do stuff. Because
yeah.
I don't know, like I don't know if you've ever heard where some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't have to go through that. Or you shouldn't have to do that." But if I didn't do it, then I wouldn't be in a better situation. I wouldn't
Which is a very
necessarily.
fair point. Yeah.
So I can't really think about necessarily like not doing something. I would love to. I'd fucking. Oh my god, I'd love to have so much money. I just have to chill
But
out. But
I think even I was talking with like, I think with people at sometimes, I think with my partner most recently, about our, I guess, like, we talked about like retirement and things like that, although it's very far away. But um, I. I genuinely, I can't see myself, although I because of the some other things, I can't, I don't see myself becoming or like getting old. But also, even if I were to like force myself into picturing myself being retired, I still feel like I would do something, whether it would be for money or whether it would be like volunteering or whatever it would be.
yeah,
I still, I don't, I like, I enjoy having a lion, in the morning or something like that. But then after a few hours, I'm like, okay, I gotta do something.
see, I don't know. It depends really. Like for me, it depends on what is necessary. If
Yeah.
I get to a place where I don't have to work, I fucking guarantee you I ain't doing nothing.
No way.
Honestly, mate, I'm gonna get so fat and so lazy, and not have to do anything if that is what is going to be on offer. But I could easily work for the rest of my life until I don't have to, and to some degree be okay with it, even if it would be like a hard life. Like I used to do this. One of the second jobs I had for ages was doing security. Like there was, you could literally do nothing and earn a living. I've seen many people do it. You just do like night shifts in an office, right? You can get paid a decent salary. You can be asleep half the time. And if that's going to be the worst thing for me, and then I have to take my annual leave and just enjoy life outside of that, I'm more than willing to accept that. But I don't know. Might as
Interesting.
well try and do a little bit more if I can.
And when did you stop doing security?
I got when I got when I got became Jesus Christ, when I became a facilities manager, when the salary went up,
Went
I
up,
didn't need
right,
to,
right,
like,
right.
I earned a salary where I didn't need to have a second job.
But that's amazing, man. Because I like, because you're from London,
Yeah, North London.
North
Yeah,
London, yeah. And
Islington.
the only reason why I find, because I find it very like, I guess, more, um I see it like more of a, as more of a thing for people to have like different, like multiple jobs and things like that, when they are, say, like foreigners into a country, and they're like, oh, I gotta work like for these years, and then I go back to my, I go back home, sort of thing. While to hear you going like, again, almost, although in one hand you're like, I wasn't like, I didn't do this because of whatever, but it was technically your own volition, because like you were like, oh, I need to make more money, I need to do all these things.
Yeah.
And then to like do all these, like get all these jobs, is just, I don't know.
Well, 100%. I mean, like, I got that immigrant mentality, they call it, I guess. And yeah, honestly, I don't know. I guess part of it is like my mum, and I think as I've gotten older, I've realised I've got a lot of good habits with her, and also kind of like a fear. You don't do fuck all. You don't bring in rent, and you can fuck off.
I
Um,
feel the same, sometimes, but
yeah,
I don't understand when people are, oh, it's okay. I'm like, how can
yeah,
you be okay with like not having a job or like looking for work? I'm
yeah.
shitting myself
Well,
only
no, quite
thinking
right.
about it.
And I grew up in an environment where that was a lot of what was going on. Where I live, there's a lot of people that probably never had a job. They go straight to kind of benefits. They, get council houses and flats and stuff like that, and really don't work and be sort of a participant in society in that way. So that was always a part of my thinking. I didn't want to be like the people that kind of I grew up in that environment. Even though some people act like Islington's the most poshest place in the world. Like I tell people I'm from there, and they're like, "Ooh, fancy." I'm like, "You ain't got a fucking clue." Like it's so different from one
Yeah,
place to another in Islington. Um, but no, I mean, I used to wake up in the morning, and it would be me and the people that don't speak English going to work, and then I'd be 5 a.m. in the morning, and then coming home at like 11 midnight on the same day, and it'd be the exact same kind of brand of people. Um, but again, it kind of grew out of necessity. I started getting more jobs. I couldn't get a full time job because of my circumstances and maybe not pushing myself far enough for certain jobs and whatever else. But I came accustomed to earning that money.
fair.
And then
Yeah,
my lifestyle for quite a few years was working for the most part. I worked a lot of hours between Monday and Friday, Saturday, and then some Sundays on occasions. And then every few months I'd go away on holiday. I'd go on trips for a few weeks. I've been on some like great holidays for myself, and yeah, that's basically what I used to do for a few
very
years. Just
nice.
enjoying life
Yeah.
in that sense. Yeah,
Well, okay. So now let's go back a little bit. What was it like? Because then you're saying like people go like, oh yeah, Islington is posh. Although I don't think so. I moved to London, and I moved to Islington was the first place that
yeah,
I lived on in Liverpool Road,
yeah,
atop of Liverpool Road,
yeah.
and it was I think I've seen a rat which was probably the size of a dog at one
Possibly
point.
human.
And yeah, actually, I lived in a council, like a council estate. Again, although I was renting in that council estate, which is another problem that I have with. It's just the way, like everything is been then, like, say, bought by individuals who then rent out the place
Oh
that
yeah.
was meant. Anyway, that's a whole different story. Anyway, yes, that's the thing. People, if someone tells you, "Oh my God, that's posh," it's not posh. But then now, also, my question is, yeah, what was it like? Yeah, like what was it like growing up in Islington?
Um, yeah, it was all right. Definitely rough. In a lot of ways, and I think it's over the years it's gotten sort of better and gentrified and
Because
not as bad.
when you were was because no, because Arsenal didn't have the stadium. They had Highbury, right?
They did, yeah,
So
yeah.
you didn't grow up near like what's the stadium now?
Not right close to it. Where the stadium is now is basically one street over from the house I grew up in as a kid till I was about 9 or 10. So
Ah,
I lived with my single mum and three other brothers in a two-bedroom flat on the top floor of kind of like a tenement house. Until we was like 9 in a kind of like a little dead end or cul-de-sac, not really a cul-de-sac, but like a ghetto cul-de-sac.
yeah.
But it was just the end of a road, and that wasn't too bad because it was very enclosed. There wasn't too much going on around there. There was an estate called Harvest Estate, which was just around the corner, which was quite rough. But my mum kept quite a sort of heavy thumb, at least on my head. My older brother could kind of do what he wanted, but for me and my twin brother, we were kept quite close. And then when I was 9 or 10, we moved up to Archway to Elthorn Estate, which is a massive, big estate, quite rough.
Archway.
I mean, the
Yeah.
very first week I got there was a shop in the middle of our flats, into the middle of our estate, and someone got their neck slit in front of the shop, like our very first week. And I mean
What?
that area. One day I remember looking outside and there was like 30 black guys out on the front wall just waiting there, sitting there. We've had. I remember what this. I tell you about getting up early. Like I got up, I think about 4:35 to go to work. I get a phone call from my mum about 6:37 because she's about to go to work, saying that she can't come out because there's SWAT police around everywhere because someone just across the road in another estate was had a gun, so they were just kind of like not letting everyone out. So that was more in my teenage years or kind of like early 20s. But that's the kind of area I grew up in.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, what was it like if you again just go as far as it feels comfortable? Because I'm generally curious. What was it like? I guess if you or have you spoke with like your mom now about like what was it like for her to like it was like even for you to be like a single mom with three children and like moving around and living in these places and no is that ever became like have you ever talked about it?
Um, I guess maybe at times really. My mum's anyone that knows me knows my mum because how much I talk about her, my love and adoration for her. She's a tough woman though, and she's not really. I think only looking back, you kind of realize what it was necessarily. I don't know. You grow up and it kind of is what it is, right? You experience what you experience. It's kind of normal. I think our family dynamic and what we experience isn't that dissimilar to a lot of the dysfunction that is around that area. And for her to kind of go through the things that she's gone through, which is specific to her, and still kind of produce a reasonable family. And for me, I think one of the best kind of upbringings I possibly could have had, given the situations. I like we don't talk about it that much, but it's something that I reflect on a lot for sure. Because as I've gotten older as well, and certainly kind of enter into different situations like work and excelling in there, and then comedy and being around all these different types of people and people learning kind of my lived experience, and even just kind of living with my girlfriend. She's from Wales. She grew up in a sort of little town in Wales, and to sort of describe the life we have and what she sees even now, I certainly reflect on that and think that it's quite. I mean, I'm blown away at what my mum's done. To be honest, yeah. Um, I have a really good friend, Dina, and we grew up in the same area. And especially in the last few years, as we've gotten older, I've often said like, I just feel so fortunate to be who we are and kind of how we think, given the situation we grew up in. Because like I know people from school that are like drug addicts and obviously been to prison for killing people. They've died themselves,
What?
and I never got involved in that sort of stuff. So like my friendship group was never that. I'm not saying like I was a very good boy, but these are the circumstances you kind of
Yeah,
grew up
yeah,
around in. But
yeah. Of
you
course.
kind of, I guess, you learn that it isn't necessarily normal. Um, Me and Holly we went to Philadelphia last year.
No
Went to New
way.
York and Philadelphia,
Nice.
and we went to this.
Adrian.
Yeah, I went
Adrian.
running up them steps, man. There's a lot of steps, for that statue, and a lot of. Have you been to Philadelphia?
No, but I want to.
It's crazy the drug addiction there. I've never seen anything
No
like it.
way.
You just see these people just walking down the street, right? You're walking down the street, and then you just see like these random people just face planted in the floor.
Oh
I've
God,
never seen any.
I'm
I've seen
sorry
you
for
see drug
laughing, but
addicts on the floor, but the
yeah.
fact they would just start out like they've literally just killed over, face planted, and it was all over the place, just scattered. You're literally walking down the street, just step over someone. Um, but I digress. We went to sorry, we went to this
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, and we went to this prison tour, and in it there was this thing at the end, like a question where you and someone else sits on the other end, and it asks questions about incarceration. And do you know, some of the questions was, do you know someone in your family that has been to prison? Yes or no? Do you know someone in your area? Have you been to prison and this and that and the other? And a lot of mine was like yeses to yes or medium or whatever. And obviously all of Holly's was no. And she was quite taken back. Like she's like, I don't know anyone that's ever been to prison.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got multiple family members. Like, it's just how it is. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of.
But you see, this is the thing though, where which is quite interesting because as you were sharing your, I guess like the story about the upbringings, and you're like, given the circumstances, it's great, and like, yeah, you grow up because you're saying the story about how, your mom calls you at like at 6:30, going like, hey, I can't go to work because there is like a SWAT team outside the flat. Um, it was similar to like some of the things that basically I tell sometimes people about like how I grew up in Romania, and because the part of Romania that I grew up in, just for everyone for context, is I guess it's known for its like trafficking because it's on border with Ukraine. So we had loads of like smuggling basically. And yeah, like I remember like I had the basically you'd see people without fingers on the street, and you knew that that's because like they got their fingers chopped because they owed money to like gangsters and stuff like that. And you see like I remember there is another story about how someone had to like dig their grave, and then a few days later they were basically killed
Yeah.
in the said grave. And it's kind of like, and also like you see people in the street and you like the elephant in the room, like that. Although, but then you see, this is the thing. In one hand, I tell people, it's oh my god, that sounds horrible. But then in the other hand, I've never felt unsafe as a child because I kind of knew that that's like grown up stuff. So like, although my dad was an accountant, but also he did some other things on the side as well, and I knew he was caught with some stuff, but it's never felt like like I don't know, like sometimes I feel now where everyone's at risk of something, or like
Yeah.
something can, while yeah, for me growing up it was kind of like, and also like, yeah, you had those adults having problems, or like
Yeah.
those people fighting or whatever, but you were okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, we both live in London. I've grown up in London all my life. One of the biggest things people always talk about is knife crime,
Yeah,
right? And I've literally had people right outside my house, where they put up the tent because someone's been stabbed. But I've never felt like I was in danger because it doesn't happen. And I've tried to tell people that are from outside London don't want to come in. It's not, people don't just go around, well, scratch that. I've seen people go around brandishing machetes and
yeah,
waving them out in public. Don't get me wrong, but they are going after someone specific. They're not, no one just goes around there just randomly stabbing people or attack people in certain ways. There's a park near me specifically where this, people get stabbed there multiple times a year. That's because it's the same people going there in the middle of the night, and it's there for a specific reason. You're not just walking down the road and people just. So bad things happen around you. And
yeah,
don't get me wrong. Look, I've been robbed a few times, and people do, and you have to be wary of that. But in terms of like the extreme ends of it, those are set for a specific type of person.
yeah.
Um, you do have to be mindful around the area for maybe getting robbed, and definitely watch your phone. But I don't think you're randomly going to get stabbed. Maybe if you refuse to give up what you got in your pockets, but you know, unless it's like a really valuable Pokemon card, it's not worth giving up. Yeah,
Yeah, which again is fair enough, and it puts things in I don't know. It just makes you think about stuff. Because I was gonna say, I was in Woolwich a couple months, a couple, maybe like almost a year ago now.
yeah.
I
Time
was,
passes quick, innit? You always like, I was
yeah,
there last week, and
yeah, I was
actually,
there.
it was 2012.
That's yeah. I was thinking about like, yeah, that's probably like 15 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
no,
was actually in Romania.
I went to no, because we didn't have Mackey's in my hometown, and basically I went to Woolwich for a gig, and then I went to Mackey's after the gig,
Nice.
to have some food, and on the way out, basically this like there was someone behind me, and then this guy just like shouts, "Oi, big man!" And I turn around, and he holds a knife, and I looked at him, and like I didn't do it because I wanted to, but I was just like, "Oh, fuck off."
Yeah,
And he literally just looks at me and he goes, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And he just walks away.
great.
And I was like walking away from it. Also, just for I've not been to Woolwich since, but
Hope it comes
also,
back for you.
I was like, "What the fuck?" I don't know how, or like why I reacted the way I
Yeah,
reacted, but
you're just too old for that shit.
I just found it really funny that the guy was like, and again, as soon as I said "fuck off," he was, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
Yeah,
And I saw like his rolling his eyes, and he just left.
yeah, yeah. Well, most people like that are looking for an easy target anyway, and they're not looking for no hassle,
Yeah,
really. In that sense, they're just looking for someone to be vulnerable. I mean, like, yeah, that a lot of that stuff hasn't happened to me since I was. I mean, it's not going to happen to me as a grown man. I mean, there was a guy I was playing tag rugby in Finsbury Park, and this young guy with a fucking screwdriver was threatening to stab people while we were playing. And I was just like, I basically just went up to him, and I was pretty certain nothing was going to happen, but you never
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And I kept a reasonable distance, but everyone was like, "Chris, back off." I'm like, "He's not going to do anything, all right." Also, I'm like twice his size. It's about big man. Let's be real. Come on, but no, I don't know. I think when you grow up in an area where bad things can happen, you recognize where those things can come from, and you try to be a bit smart and up to it.
Yeah,
That's why people come to London and they're like, "Oh, it's so dangerous." That's because you treat it like it's a dangerous place. Treat it as it's supposed to be treated, and maybe you would be a little bit safer because you can't just walk into these scenarios and be like, "La, da, 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 da," like. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
You can't walk into a street because there's cars. They're gonna hit you, right? They can, but I don't know.
No, and I
That's
think
my attitude.
it's as well as the what's it gonna I was gonna say something which again maybe I don't know if it's a good way of looking at it or bad way for or looking at it, but then I also feel like the bigger the place you live in, the worse, or like the more things can happen because
Yeah.
like
I think it's down to density. I think it's density is the problem. Like size, yeah, because I mean Australia's massive, isn't it? And then, but no one goes there. But
but
it's like these high dense areas
yeah,
where people are just stacked on top of each other. I mean, I think years ago there was a study in New York around, like the projects,
yeah.
and obviously how that does grow, sort of, poverty and crime, and it's because when people are stacked on top of each other and there's a high density of people, it just sort of, I guess, manifests itself in a lot of aggro and.
Well, again, yeah, because it's kind of like it's like almost the way I don't know. It's like yeah, it's like a getting like a bottle of coke and just like shaking it.
Yeah,
You just you inflaming the situation, or like it's more likely for something to happen there than it is to say like happening in my old town where you literally know everyone.
yeah, yeah,
you know like you go on the street, hi Chris, because but that's because I know you because I've probably been to school with you, or like my relative has been to like knows
yeah.
your relative or whatever. So yeah, that I guess that's very
Well, the
different, but
difference is like where I live, because everyone's so together. You know each other so well. You don't talk to them.
yeah.
You know they're an issue. Don't get into my business.
Yeah.
Like you don't talk to your neighbors. That's how I was brought up. Yeah,
That's funny
yeah,
because that's really funny because in Romania it's to us it was like, oh, you gotta speak to your neighbors, and I remember when I came here and I was like, nobody's like which again, for better or worse, I'm not necessarily a very social person. Are you a social person?
yeah. I guess so. I guess so. I think most. I mean, most people would brand me that. I'd say so. I mean, people piss me off, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I get a lot of energy from being out with people for sure.
Interesting. What
Yeah.
about like do you when you do say like comedy, do you feel like do you need time to I guess recharge your like social batteries, or is that just like you have like an external I guess
Uh,
pile of energy for that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, kind of thinking back to how I've sort of led my life leading up to it, I feel like I have a good understanding of what I can spend and what comes at a cost to me. And because you can put yourself in situations where you're overextending yourself, saying yes too much to people, and
Yeah.
then finding yourself that you're tired all the time, or it just isn't giving you that fulfillment like it should do. And I've certainly learned that about myself, saying yes too much to certain things, over gigging. So I've certainly done too much, but I just know that I need to be more manageable with myself to make sure that it's sustainable. Again, it kind of goes back to that. I know it's kind of like a boring answer, but because I love it. Like I could gig every night if it was possible, but it isn't possible.
Yeah.
I'd love for it to be a case where I can do that for the most part,
Yeah.
but it just isn't possible.
No, and I think it's not a boring answer at all. It's a very good. I think again, it's a good answer. I find, and it sounds like a very healthy answer as well. Where you're kind of like, I'm aware of what I can do and as far as I can go. And if sometimes you gotta like pause or like take it a little bit slower for even
Yeah,
for a night, you will do that
yeah, you
basically.
know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't know if it's going off topic or whatever, but because when you asked me to be on this podcast and we were chatting about,
Yeah,
kind of it's been bred from like, mental health and
yeah,
things of that nature. And I was talking to a friend yesterday about something similar, but one of the reasons why I feel like I start stand up now, and one of the reasons why I thought I might not be a great guest on this was because I genuinely feel, and I don't know if this sounds arrogant or not, but I'm in a place where my mental health and my approach to how I do things is pretty secure. I understand myself to a certain degree where if it is coming to a place where it's coming at too much of a cost, I have to change course or at least have to reevaluate. Like one of the reasons I don't know how young people start doing stand up, like 18 and 20. Goodness me. I don't know what the fuck I'd be like. And this is why a lot of these people out here are losing their mind. Even in any venture,
yeah,
I've built myself up now to a point, and maybe I'm a little bit behind the ball, but now I can start putting myself into action because I can compete against all these different things because I know that I'm good. I don't
yeah,
really battle too much with my mental health to the point where it degrades me,
yeah.
um, because I know to catch it sooner. It's been to those points in the past, and I've learned from it, and I had my awakening. I call it years ago, where now I feel that I've done so much work on myself that I can only approach it in that way. I'm not really a risk taker. I do a lot and I kind
Interesting.
of
Yo,
post
that's
about things,
yeah.
but I don't. I'm very methodical and I make sure that if I'm going to do something, it's worth it now.
Yeah, but you know, you say that about the thing of like, oh, I don't know if I qualify to be on a podcast, but then you from what you said right now, something that I want to touch on is the fact that you also mentioned how again you did things to get here.
Mm.
Like it's not like oh you were always like this.
No.
So talking about and also like you said something earlier that we would touch on about like how then when you went to uni and then you had to drop out or like you chose to drop out, and then what those years were like
Mm.
because I feel like it's I don't know. Again, meant or like well-being, because that's what that's how I like to think about it. Just about like your own well-being. Like how do you look after yourself, whether it's physically, mentally. You know, it was probably again at times it must have been like there are things that have happened, or things that you have done to get here. Like it's not just as if I don't know you woke up and you're like oh okay that's it.
Yeah. 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 And I guess maybe sometimes like that can go amiss because oh god, yeah, I like oh. So I don't know. When I left, I dropped out of uni,
Yeah,
right? And leading up to going to uni, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of doing what I was supposed to.
yeah,
Finished school, went to college for a couple of years, went to uni. After 2 years, I ended up dropping out just because I wasn't enjoying it. I did
fair.
theatre arts, and the first year was great. The second year wasn't so great. Me and Matthew, my twin brother, did the exact same course. And we both dropped out at the same time because we were like, "Is this crap?" And after that period, where again I wasn't working a lot and had a lot of free time, from from my early 20s to like 25, was a lot of just kind of like probably not a great time for myself in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting this job in an archive for about god, I might have been there for about 5 6 years, from
What?
24 23 24 maybe to like late 20s. And yeah, I was there for 6 years, and for 5.5 years I hated it. Hated it, honestly. One of
Fair
the worst
enough.
things, yeah. One of the worst things I've god, honestly, brutal. Yeah.
How did you like? What did you do in the archive, or like what? How did you get a job in archive? What?
So I just applied for jobs I could apply for and managed to
Yeah.
get it, which is basically the story of my life. And I ended up applying for this job, getting a job in an archive as a facilities, as a production assistant, which was basically every 20 minutes, me and a small team of production assistants. It was the second biggest archive it is the second biggest archive in the UK. We'd get these slips with the reference book or item that someone wants to get,
Yeah.
find it on the location system, spread out as a team across the entire thing, collect them, take them to the archive reading room, and we do that every 20 minutes. And I basically did that for 6 years. And I mean, going to quite a real dark period of my life, if I'm being honest. Talk about being sociable and stuff. I ended up becoming someone that didn't talk to anyone, which was very unlike me in terms of my nature.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just shut off. Didn't talk to anyone. Um, and kind of managed to work through that, and then yeah, I don't know,
How?
just kind of um, a lot of different things really. Podcasts was massive for me.
As in, did you make yours or did you listen to
I
others?
listened to him. I listened
Uh-uh.
to him a lot. So I one of the problems I think I found when I was working in the archive, I was very much like desperate for people's sort of, I don't know, praise or gratification. I was very much always like out there on the
Yeah,
faces,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
making people laugh, this,
yeah.
that. But I always, happy clown, but like sad in the background kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'm working in this place with a bunch of people who I just think are shit,
Fair.
just shit every day. I mean, it's the most basic job of all.
Yeah.
And these people somehow manage to make it so fucking difficult. And I really, and if I can't, if you make my life hard at work, I really find it difficult to get on with you as a person, which I've grown to really
Yeah.
understand and appreciate myself over years. And that job really made me figure it out. So I just stopped talking to these people
Yeah.
and listening to podcasts, and I would just listen to that all day. And every day people were asking me, "You all right, Chris?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And over time, people just stopped asking me if I was okay. They just stopped, and that was great because I didn't have to talk to them. I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to act like I was better than I was because I weren't. Um, and that kind of led to sort of being in my head a bit too much and just getting to uh, essentially the lowest point of my life. Um, I had a what I guess I call my awakening. Really, I one day I lived with my mum for ages, and I ended up just having a bit of a breakdown in front of her. I think it was a breakdown. I can't remember how the conversation ended. I can't remember how we got there, but just broke down.
Fair.
And I don't know, I just got sick and tired of just feeling so like shit, right? Everyone, people around me would always tell me how nice I was, how great of a guy I was, how funny I was, all these different things I never really believed about myself. And I was just thinking, why am I constantly feeling like shit? And I just figured, you know what? Because I was valuing myself on things like I was never great with girls, I was an idiot, people thought I was thick, I had a job I hated. Because
Bless
back
you.
then, right,
Oh God.
one of the first things you did is when you go out and you meet people, they say, "Oh, what do you do for work?"
Yeah.
And as soon as you say, "Oh, you did for work," "Oh, that must be interesting." Everyone's job was fantastic. You could never
God.
pretend.
Yeah.
You can never say like, "Oh, it was shit."
Yeah.
I just gradually over time, like, I started two things: not caring what other people thought. So, and I started telling people how I actually felt.
Yeah.
When people told when the worst thing you could do to me in the morning was say, "Chris, how are you?" Because I'd fucking tell you. I just started telling you, "Now I feel like shit today, fucking this, that, and the other."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How's your job? You work in an archive. That must be really interesting.
No, it's shit.
Fucking shit, mate. Honestly, I just walk around with troll like an arsehole. It's a waste of time. I'm working with idiots, all that sort of stuff. Just really telling it how it is.
Yeah.
And then the other side was I started embedding myself in my own personal values because I didn't have anything else. I had no money. I had no girlfriend. I lived with my mom. I was a loser. So, but I just kept thinking, like, I'm not that bad. Surely I'm a great friend. I give myself to people as much as I can. I try and do things without being spiteful. And I really started embedding myself in that kind of stuff. And then I found podcasting
Yeah.
and was listening to podcasts and uh, really being able to just. I'll be honest with you. Do you know Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
And I listened to Joe Rogan podcast
Yeah.
before it got to this behemoth stuff, but not when
Yeah.
it was early, when he really had these really good, interesting guests. And I started listening to all these people that were really smart and feeling like I understood what they were saying
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
started to really adapt to that and not feel like I was an idiot. I started just exercising and doing basic stuff to kind of better yourself and really just going through all these different progressions to really build yourself up. And started talking to myself like I was great, convincing myself that I'm good at what I'm doing and then trying to be better and then,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff that kind of encapsulates it and just went from
But how did you manage to do that when you were already bouncing between two three jobs at a time and like doing all these again like working like I, I was gonna say yeah not physically but like yeah I don't know working in regards to like a traditional like job work and then you still have time to
yeah. So the jobs I did were so shit. They're really not,
yeah
really below what I believe is my capabilities, right? Or what I've learned to now as an adult, being like, I really wasn't doing myself justice.
yeah
I really didn't rate myself. You got to understand that. Like, I didn't push myself with anything. I didn't think I was worth shit. And I always remember a few years, sort of at some point, a friend who I guess is a friend, but maybe not so much now these days. Someone I used to hang around with, who I had thought I thought didn't really value me. And one day he said, you're a serious person, Chris. You know that, right? And it really meant a lot to me. And because I was working these jobs that didn't require a lot from me, I had a lot of time to think. Loads of time. I mean, I was listening to podcasts 7, 8 hours a day. I didn't talk to anyone for years because I had this archive job. And then the second job was security, where again, you don't talk to
yeah
anyone. So just heaps of aggressive thinking. Really just telling myself the truth. Like, just being honest with myself. If I ain't shit, then I got to make myself into being shit and being something that's worth someone
wow
valuing you. But then you have to kind of like accept what people tell you about you because I guess people have always told me nice things about me. I just never really believed it. But it was just a lot of thinking and really aggressively kind of scrutinizing myself in a lot of ways, and challenging myself, and not accepting what is bad in life and just trying to make the most of it. I don't expect much from life.
which is fair enough. I think it's a very good, not very, but again, yeah, because again, everyone can have their own stance or like their own way of that. But to an extent, I'm actually pretty similar,
Yeah.
where I guess arguably, it might be cynical, but I actually think that it's good for self preservation. Where it's kind of like, I'll just do whatever I can, or like I'm just doing whatever I'm doing, not having expectations from the world or others. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, eventually I'll do something else that's
Yeah.
gonna work out, or you bump into, I don't know, like other situations. I always thought about it in such a way when I remember, because it goes back to something that we were touching on earlier, where he was like, oh, this idea of like, how can you like not stress about like not having a job, and like how do you know, like, because I've never like quit a job without knowing that I've got
Yeah.
another job, sort of thing. Like I've
I mean,
never
how people do that, I have no
I
clue.
so you see, this is the sort of thing. Although I started to say, like, I remember when I quit the job to take a lesser paying job, but it was still
Getting paid.
paid. Like I've never looked at it on the case of like, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna get out, because that to me is like, it's mind blowing.
Mm.
And sorry, where was I going with this? Yeah, so basically my point was that yeah, I kind of, again, yeah, I get it.
But you say it's a pessimistic view, and I feel like you say that more because I hear that a lot as well, and I think that's just more from other people because it doesn't have to be a negative view. I think it's a even view. Like, don't think of it as it not being the absence of something, of like absence of hope. Some people think you have to be like hopeful, and you should be in a lot of ways, but what it really is more of like a blank canvas. It's like having a blank piece of paper and expecting it to blow your mind. Really, it's an opportunity to fill that space with something that will blow your mind.
Yeah,
Right, we have an opportunity. We're in the good fortune to I'm in the good place and the good fortune to be born in a place, in a situation where I can do a lot with what I have.
yeah,
Right, and my canvas, even though it's blank, I've got a lot more tools to fill it. It's not the fact, but if I don't do anything, it's going to stay blank. That's just
yeah,
how it is. Now it may become a shittier piece of paper, or it may just stay the same, but I'm going to make sure that at least I can do the most with it. And I don't think that's pessimistic at all. I think it's realistic. The last few years, right, I've been thinking a lot about class, right? Because doing stand up comedy and then doing my job as well, which is putting me in different situations with a lot of other people,
yeah,
has really made me think around the ideas of class and where I come from versus other people. And what I think that like I'm from a working to lower class background for sure. And there are people that obviously are more elevated ones. And I
yeah,
think where there is a divide, right, one of the many, I think people that are in like middle class and up, right, they have a lot of hope, ambition. They can see things uh, with a much wider berth that they can then fill that space and achieve it, right? But what
interesting.
they don't have is they don't have a realistic grounding that allows them to actually start from a place of good foundation, which makes sense, right? That's why, like, all of these campaigns you see out in the world, I don't know where you work, but all these ideas that a lot of workplaces have, you're like, where have you come up with this nonsense? It's coming out of nowhere, and this is not going to work because
Yeah,
you've not have you you're not. It comes from nowhere that has any real substance.
yeah,
Working to lower class people, they live in the mud, the reality, the real grassroots. So they have a really firm grasp of the foundation, but they don't understand ambition or where things can go.
yeah,
So they have no hope. They have a quote unquote pessimistic view because they stay grounded. But if you don't have like hope or ambition or have a vision to see something that is much greater than what you're at,
yeah,
you won't be able to elevate yourself. People that have all that hope, if they don't have the foundation, it's not going to be worth anything because it's all going to crumble anyway.
yeah. That is such an interesting way of addressing this.
Mm.
And as you were talking about it, I was I was thinking, I was like, I see so much of like my parents on the bit about like, you again when you either like have one of the other, which was like the you know the foundation basically, but then anything to like even say, I remember when I started doing comedy, for example, although sadly my parents weren't at the time, but weren't around anymore. But I remember like talking to my sister about it, and to her, although again she's very supportive, but she's kind of like, and what, like, you still have a day job, right,
Mm.
sort of thing, which again, not in a obviously, which I do still have a day job, but it wasn't in a way of like, oh, you're not gonna make it. It's more of a, it's like
Make sure you
it
have that
doesn't
safety
sound, yeah,
blanket.
yeah, exactly. It's not like is it plausible? Like I don't know how plausible.
Well,
While
sorry to cut you off. I mean,
yeah,
I know a bunch of comics that have stopped working to pursue comedy after like 2 years. And I could never, you have that much security in yourself that you think you can earn a good
no,
live. Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, there has to be a middle ground.
Well, again, I guess, but that's where he goes. Like, oh, everyone's like circumstances are different. But to me, I'm like, no, I've got. The thing is, I think as far as I went part time, but that's also because I'm struggling with like my health, and I've had the difficult. But again, it's a combination of that plus comedy.
Mm.
But I wouldn't just, like, I don't feel comfortable going like what I make now, or for this year, for the past year, I've made enough so that I can pay my bills. So I basically I gave up the saving part
Yeah.
for the time being.
Yeah.
But although now I'm going back to uni,
Yeah.
so I'm getting my maintenance finance as well, so
There you
everything
go.
is good. But and then after that, I'll hopefully get a much like higher paid job. But yeah, for the time being, you see, I still have to like work things around.
Yeah.
But coming back to your point, I was just like, oh yeah, it makes so much sense because no. Again, it's not to say it's something else. No, but anyway, yeah, it does make sense in this context as well, and also like the fact that I saw my parents in this, and then in the other hand, I was like, yeah, that's so true because you get all these, like things where, oh, we're just gonna come up and test this out for like 10 months, and I'm like, how do you have fucking 10 months to test this shit?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's kind of like if I don't know if I get a cheaper like subscription to like I don't know a farm that because I like get milk. If well, I'll go with like the cheapest one. I'm not gonna wait 10 months for like a pound extra. No, never mind of yeah, we got this project. We're running this project. It's
Mm.
just it's just like on a tester phase. I'm like, how can you afford
Yeah.
just testing stuff like this?
Yeah, I mean that is another circumstance. Actually, having money. I mean, I've got no money. I'm terrible at saving. But as much as I work for it, I don't save it. I just kind of
which,
live with it.
which is fair enough, man, because you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you touched something earlier where you were like, look, I work. You were saying like, you work and you do all these things, but then you travel around. Basically you look after yourself
Yeah.
with that, or like which again, yeah, it's fair
Well,
enough, man.
regardless of kind of how I've always felt, like one of the things I think I've always been able to do is enjoy myself.
Yeah,
Like even at my lowest point, like and figured out ways to have a good laugh. And I think that's kind of where if you think about your main tenets as a person and what makes you you, for good and for bad, I think because my thing is lean towards the things you're good at and lean away from the things that you're not and work on the ones that you're not if you can, or if or just disregard it. Like there's no point pursuing something if it's never going to work for you anyway. Like just
true.
upload it if you can. I mean, I know that sounds people are going to that sounds easier than whatever. Look, I've worked on it, fine. I can say it because I'm in the habit of doing it. But I think I think that one of the things I can one of the things I like I've always liked about myself, even when I hate myself, is that I can still have a laugh regardless. Like I'm always there for a joke. If something's there to be had, I'm there. You know what I mean? And
Nice.
yeah, so and I think that's always kind of put me in good stead to generally at least see the brighter side of things because I'm not. I don't think I'm a pessimist. I think I'm actually quite hopeful, but I don't expect a lot, which I think is reasonable.
Which, yeah, I think it's again, yeah, I think not deciphering, but like taking listening to you and like, yeah, you know what, it's again, I think and look, it sounds like it works for you because like you said, this is you're feeling good, you're feeling like things are moving, and
Yeah,
but most importantly, yeah, that thing about how you can still, again, you can be both at the same time. Like you can be both, being hopeful, but also making sure that, because I think it's one of those things where, like, you what's the saying, you have to buy a lottery ticket in order to win the lottery. You can't
Yeah.
win it without buying it. So I think that's the thing. It's kind of like how, obviously, you gotta be hopeful that thing, like everything will work out,
Mm.
but in the same hand, you gotta work out. Like
Yeah.
you can't, I don't know, I see it, I can't go to gym, or like, no, I can't not go to the gym
Yeah.
and then think, you know what, tomorrow I'll just wake up with a six-pack, or tomorrow I'm just gonna wake up being like
Yeah.
fit as,
Yeah. But I think where some people don't really find that within themselves is because they don't have enough faith in themselves. They don't have enough self belief. Like you can self confidence and self belief, I think, are two different things. I'm not confident in some areas and I'm confident in others.
Interesting.
But what I have or what I've developed is a self belief in that whatever needs to be done, I can figure it out and get it done. And that's what allows me to at least be liberated into thinking, all right, maybe this isn't the best situation. I don't need to stress because I know that at least there are things in your control and there's things outside of your control. And the only thing that's really ultimately in control is yourself and
True.
what you are in those situations. And I know I'm never gonna relent. Like I feel like I'm quite tough. Um, I'm gonna take things with as much good spirit as I can do. And if there is anything that is gonna try to draw me back, I'm gonna try and work my best to work through that because everything's hard. Every
Yeah, that's
day's
true.
hard. Like every day for me is a battle to kind of get through the morning to the afternoon to the evening and actually do it where you can be like, all right, let me do this tomorrow, innit? But if you get into the habit of at least trying to figure out and trust that you can do it within yourself, at least you're giving yourself a fucking fighting chance. It's
Yeah.
either that or do fuck all.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like,
Be someone in the park that ain't doing nothing with a big bottle of white lightning, just drinking yourself to death.
that's true as well. And sadly, it can happen, and it's so easy. Not easy, but yeah.
It
And
is easy though. I will push back on that. I do think it is easy. I think it's easy to kind of just lean into the towards the way that you are going.
uh,
I think the hardest thing is to actually swim upstream, because if things are going a certain way, you're only going to continually go that way if you don't fight against it. It's got to be a conscious effort to push yourself past what is holding you back. Like, which ultimately for me, I've decided that there's a lot that's holding me back. There's a
yeah,
lot of things. And even now, even this year, moving in with my girlfriend and some of the things I've had to contend with in the last few years, I thought I had a good understanding of myself. It's gone to a whole different level in terms of what I need to battle through myself just to even be there in the real world and actually fight it, like and actually progress and be happy. Certain,
interesting.
yeah, it's yeah, a lot of different things.
And then how do you then, like, how do you notice when that's the case? Like, how do you kind of like see, oh, either, oh, this is not working, or this is not what I expected it to be? How do you, I guess, how do you assess those sort of situations?
Well, if it just makes me feel bad, I mean, look, if something's going well and something's good, then don't need addressing.
Yeah,
So if something if there's a potential stimulus out there in the real world that makes me feel good, then I'm leaning towards that. That's for sure. Do you know what I'm saying? But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if it's something that makes me feel bad, I generally try to at least look at myself as early as I can do, which is hard. You know what I mean? Sometimes things piss me off all the time. I'm
Yeah,
just that demeanor, I guess, like a lot
yeah.
of people, and you just I have to understand whether it's rational and reasonable for me to think like that or not, because how I feel isn't right all the time, and I think that's an important part of the whole process of understanding yourself. Because if you feel a certain way, I don't think it justifies you in acting a certain way, and how you act versus how you feel is is how you act from how you feel is just as important as how you feel, but they're not always the same.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And I react to things poorly, and I can react to things well. And I learn from the things I react to well. And if I act poorly to a situation, or at least try and look at myself and be like, well, how am I? Why am I feeling like this? And it all draws back to my mum.
No way. That's lovely, man.
Mostly, yeah.
I,
Which is crazy actually. I thought my mum had a big influence on me. This year, it's actually too much. It's God. I could be if I actually went to see a therapist, which I'd probably never do again. Uh,
Why
I would be
not?
talking about my mum all the time. It'd be crazy. I think I've got some kind of obsession with her, which I probably do.
Which is fair enough, man, because you know I love my mom,
Oh,
and I I generally I think I tell my partner sometimes that I feel like she sometimes she would do stuff and I'm like, oh my god, you remind me of my mom,
yeah.
and it's just so weird because obviously I'm not.
I'm sure your partner takes that well.
No, well the thing is I'm not because I know it's not like I'm not attracted. Nah,
Yeah.
that sounds. I think I'm just digging myself a grave
No,
here.
actually, you should have carried on that sentence and have stopped it because when you stopped it, it sounded like you do fancy your girlfriend because she looks like your mum.
No, 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 not because she looks. She reminds me in regards to like things that she would do, or like
Yeah,
the way she would like handle some situations, and then I'm like, oh, that makes me feel really nice, and then I'm like, oh fuck, this is exactly what my mom
yeah.
used to
Well, I think the sick
do.
thing about I think that's why it's too much to talk about. Saying this year is because there's a lot of traits that my girlfriend has that um is a lot like my mum, which I obviously makes her more attractive to me, but not from a physical standpoint,
Yeah, of course,
but
yeah,
from like my mum is Holly. My mum is the toughest person I've ever met.
yeah.
She's unbelievable, um, and Holly is as tough as anyone I've ever met, and that is a big attribute that I find attractive in people because I'm not sure, and this is going to sound horrible, but I don't know if people exemplify that enough these days in the right way, right? Because my mum can be tough in the right ways, she can be tough in very wrong ways, and I think Holly
Yeah,
is she's we me and Holly used the word gritty, like she says I'm gritty, and I think she's gritty too. Like, yeah, she is. There's not much that's going to stop her from doing what she needs to do. She'll like us all take our moments with each other and
yeah, of
process
course,
what we need to process.
yeah,
She might maybe ignore that more than she needs to sometimes, but we're learning together how to be more open with each
yeah,
other.
of course.
And but I respect people that you save the moments you can let yourself be vulnerable because sometimes you gotta stand up to what's in front of you, and she can stand up with the best of them.
Well, you see, this is that's such an amazing trait, and yeah, I think in a similar sense, my mom was a very strong character. Which again, like I think it was funny the thing that you said about your mom, where he was like, he can be like tough on for the good or the right,
The
or
wrong
the
reasons.
bad or the wrong reason, the right or the wrong
So
reasons.
English is hard.
He kind of is though, especially because when I feel like emotional, because every time I think about my mom, oh
Oh
god,
yeah,
So yeah, it gets worse now, but yeah, no, I agree with you, and again, yeah, that's thing I see it in my mom, and I'm like, sometimes again she wouldn't like we've never um I've never won a fight with her, like no like a fist fight,
yeah, yeah.
but I'm talking
Because
about
you
like
take her clearly.
no, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
But
No, my mum's nasty. She would get a knife or something. She's 4'11", but she's hooded out.
the thing is, yeah, with my mom, I would never be able to win an argument. Although it would be like the clearest argument. So say like, look, there is like the little airplane thing behind you, and I would say that airplane is brown,
Oh,
and then she would go something like, oh, you're a Taurus. Of course,
yeah.
you'll see it brown. I'm like, no, it's brown. It's like, no, you're a Taurus.
I'll tell
That's
you
why.
this one, right?
Yeah,
So I'm 36 years of age, right?
yeah,
37 this year. My mum is, in her 70s, right? I don't live with her, put that all into context. I told her, she got a letter. I get letters still sent to her house.
yeah,
One letter that got sent was I need to renew my driving license, right?
yeah.
So I'm over there and we're talking about, she's like, what letter is that? It's a driving license. So I was trying to renew it. I need to go to the post office. And she'd be like, oh, you can do it online, can't you? And I said, well, I can. I tried it, but I just couldn't do it. So I'm going to go into the post office. Bring your passport here tomorrow. I'll sort it out. And I'm like, no, no, don't worry. She's like, bring your passport here. I'll fucking sort it out. All right. So that's that. I come over Sunday. That morning, I'm busy. I'm doing stuff. I'm rushing around. She always tells me, don't rush around
Yeah.
because I forget. You're an idiot. You'll forget. So I go to hers about 11 o'clock with my girlfriend, right? Go into living room, First thing she goes is, "You brought your passport." Before I said anything else, Holly comes in, "Hello, hello, whatever. Have you brought your passport?" "No." "Go home and get it." And I'm laughing like, "Mum, I'm not going to go get my passport. All right? I'll bring it tomorrow or something. Don't worry." She goes, "Go home and get it." I'm like, "Are you being serious right now? You getting angry with me because I haven't got?" "Yeah. If you ain't going to bring it home, you can fuck off." And my girlfriend's right there. I'm like, "You're joking." Then she's not talking to me at all. I'm like, "You all right? Is how things going?" Holly tries to talk to her. Bless her.
Oh.
She's barely answering. So I'm like, "Do you know what? Let's just go in." I'm like, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? My mum. It does not matter how old you are, what stage of life you're in, what stage of life she's in. She's still going to give me the business like that for not bringing up. And the problem with that is that so I didn't talk to her for a couple of days, and someone like my mum, I said this to Holly the other day, but the thing with her is that even now she makes me scared to go back and say hello to her after something like that's happened. One, it shouldn't have happened anyway because she's been irrational. But two, like I went to her house on Wednesday and I'm feeling nervous going there. I'm like, fuck, because the way she is, if you get into an argument, I'm always fully prepared that this is the last time I'm ever going to talk to her because she's so stubborn that she could lock you off for ages.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. You know, which is fair enough because I remember me and my
I
mom.
saw her today though. She's lovely. She's fine.
No, no, but the thing is, me and my mom would have like this thing at the end of the no, when we have an argument, and then like she would hang up the phone on me or something, and then the same for a few days. I will not
Mm,
like message her because I would be too scared that she's just not gonna reply.
yeah.
But then out of like after 2 days, she would message me, but then as if like nothing has happened,
Okay.
or like she would call me because basically we have this thing where we used to call each other every day again unless we had a fight. But then like we say we had a fight today, she's not going to call me for 2 days, but then after 2 days she's going to call me and then just behave as if
Mm,
nothing has
yeah.
happened. And I'm like,
No, my mum.
this is
No, my mum is. She'll be frosty. She'll start talking to you, and you have to apologize to her, even though she says you can never apologize, but you still have to apologize. And only recently has she started accepting apologies.
Right.
I said to her, "I'm really sorry, mum. I was rushing. You said, if you rush, you'll
Yeah.
forget. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry." She was like, "Good." I've got to go through these fucking circles. Like, really?
Did you get your
Yeah, I
driving
sorted out
license?
myself that evening. Believe that. Here you go, mum. Eat it.
Well, you know what? This has been amazing. And oh god, yeah, this has been great.
Oh, good.
And look, I was going to ask now the big question is where do people check out your work? How does anyone stay in touch with you if they'd like so? And also, how do people see your work? And if you've got anything exciting, happening for the end of the year, yeah, let us know.
Yeah, I guess. Well, we've not really talked about my comedy, so the only things I can do is publicise that. I guess.
Of course.
Unless people are interested in facilities management, I'm not sure. We've got a massive audience here for that, but you can shout out on my LinkedIn page if you like that. If you want to catch me doing comedy or anything of the like, my Instagram page is at Chris_J_Ali. I don't post loads of reels and stuff like that, but I don't really publicize it much because I don't know, it's not for that kind of consumption. But I also have a vlog that I put on YouTube, uh, which basically I'd started really early on when I started doing my stand up comedy. It's called My Comedy Journey. I've basically just done a vlog of from gig about 14 onwards of every gig or almost every gig I've ever done. And I've started lessening them over the last year just because I can't do every gig.
Fair.
I'm putting them out once a week. I've recently put up my 100th vlog. So if anyone wants to watch that, a lot of new comics like it because it gives them an insight into like the open mic circuit and what to expect in a certain way. Because you know what it's like when you
Nice.
start.
Yeah.
It's a bit unknown, and it gives a bit more of I mean, I know people that have come up to me afterwards and said that they've started stand up from watching a vlog, or they've done certain gigs because of what I've
They've
said.
watched it.
And I think it really. I don't know. I did it because basically I wanted to record everything. And I thought I'd use Google servers rather than my own. And yeah, so I have that as well.
That's very good.
So that's my comedy journey on YouTube. If anyone is local to London or the area, I run my own open mic, which I'm going to have you on soon, hopefully. The OM Comedy Club, which is a new act, new material night. Um, Look, I'm just going to say it out loud. I think it's one of the best open mics in London. It's certainly turned into that. It's a good vibe. Everyone has a good time. Most people overperform, so you get a lot of good feedback. It's generating some people from the local area coming out as well. So when you come out, hopefully it will be a good night. And I'm going to start a bigger OM showcase in Islington. The first one's going to be November 21st of this year, which is the day before my birthday. I've got a community centre not too far from the pub which I do the open mic. It's going to be about 60, 70 people, maybe even more,
No
at least
way.
if it's filled up. And I'm going to start hopefully doing more bigger comedy nights as well, based off of the OM as well.
That's
Um,
amazing, man.
I don't put my gigs out really to come and watch me, but if you ever want to know where I'm gigging, just message me. I guess I can tell you where I'm at this week, but I gig so much that it's kind of hard to keep track of.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I feel like at this level as well, where I'm kind of like, and also I think things change so much, and like I get, like so many like either last minute sports and stuff like this. Because also with my schedule, not
Yeah.
I don't know past 3 weeks. Besides of the days off, I don't know what my program during the days when I'm working.
See, I'm quite organized. I mean, I'm pretty much booked about a month or two in advance, and I have been since I started stand up.
No
Yeah, I
way.
don't really pick up late spots. So I know what I'm doing a month before, generally. So I
Interesting.
always know where I'm at. But I'm just starting to gig a little bit more outside of London now. So my berth is getting quite wide. And yeah, I'm comedy's going all right. It's I'm getting some decent
That's
spots.
very good because on that I was gonna say that I have some gigs, and I feel like now because luckily this year I've managed to get some, at least like one paid spot. I think every month besides of June and July.
Yeah, strong.
Um,
How long you been doing it for?
almost 3 years.
Okay.
But again, I'm talking about like just like covering travel expenses stuff like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But
Hey, look,
still, you know what? Yeah, to
better than
me,
losing money, but I've like, I'm losing money hand over. It's literally my only social life in terms of what I'm spending, which is much less than I used to on boozing. But oh god, no, I'm spending fucking hundreds a month on this.
well, you see, this is why I'm like, but again, it makes me feel better, and it's like it's good, and but what I was gonna say is, yeah. So with those gigs, yeah, I have them like planned in advance. But
But the open
besides of
mic stuff,
that, like, yeah, if I get something like I'm kind of again, and it's also because of my, because I work in like I work retail hours basically on my part time job. So yeah, I wouldn't know what's
yeah,
happening in
shift
3 weeks.
works hard.
Yeah,
I'm just a 9 to 5 or yeah.
well, you see, well, hopefully soon that'll be sorted. But for the time being, yeah. So that's why, yeah, I very much agree with you. And I'm like, I can't post stuff or like it's not. I don't know. I don't find it feasible to have to post stuff because then if something happens, I also I find it funny when sometimes people post like, "Oh, I'll be here like last minute. I'll be here tonight." I'm like, I don't think anyone's gonna.
Especially last minute.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd do it for like friends and stuff if they wanted to, but then I realized all these quote unquote friends that say they want to come out never come out anyway. So
yeah. I
if
think
they want to come out, just message me.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like every time someone who goes like, "Oh, when you're performing, I'd love to come and see you next time." I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, here's what I'm performing next."
yeah.
Ah, such a shame.
You know what I mean? It's like when are you gigging? I'm like gigging every week until forever.
Yeah,
How about
and
that?
there's like, "Oh, I'm busy that night," and I'm like, "Well, why did you ask then?"
Yeah, is it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, you lose a lot of friends doing this, or at least in your mind.
Which is fine though, because I also feel like I think I've abused my closest friends at the beginning when I started doing stand up by like dragging them with me to like shows and stuff like
Yeah,
this. So now I'm kind of like, you know what, fair enough. And also because again, because of everything else, and it's like such a big part of like actually my whole social. I think no, besides of two friends I have outside of the comedy world, then especially because I moved to like all my other good friends are in Manchester, but because of that, yeah, besides of the two friends from comedy, that's my social life. Like
yeah,
that's it.
yeah. But you're still in your 20s, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
not for long. But
yeah, yeah. But I mean, well, when you get to like, I'm not saying this like an old man, but like as a 36-year-old, like I'm not. Any new friends that come on board is good for them, not for me. Because if I'm willing to accept you in my life at this point, you must be someone that I like being around. Because I ain't got no time for that shit. Do you know what I mean? You know what
fair
I mean?
enough.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, but that's why it's the perfect time. I love it. Like, I love stand up so much. I actually can't believe how much more I love it than I thought I would.
No way.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's I just love it, and I could stop it as well, by the way. But this is I just love it.
I think I've met a lot of people who are who basically had to stop because of the way it impacted their well-being and their mental health. But then I also like, yeah, I generally look at myself or like look at other people who I'm like, you know what, it's been such a it's just been so good. Although again, it puts me in situations where, like, I still like the amount of gigs, like for example over summer, get canceled because like nobody's there
Yeah,
and it's hot and stuff like this. But what, I'd still do it. Like if I go and do a gig in front of like two audience members, I'll still do it because it's just so, I don't know, I think it's everything else about it, just like preparing. I think, look, for example, like even recording this podcast, like looking forward to today was like my first, technically like my first day off from a day job in about a week. And but throughout the week I had times when I was like, oh, I'm so fucking tired.
yeah,
But then I was like, no, I got the podcast episode on Sunday, like, or I got like, I'm doing something that, and if it's not the podcast, then it's the gig that I'm doing tomorrow night and things like that. I'm like, at least I got that.
yeah. I mean, I've had periods. I do give myself a break from doing gigs and stuff, and a
Nice.
couple of weeks here. I had a month off in May, and it's good for me. But boy, do I miss it. And actually, it's become. I was speaking to another comic, Louis McLean, who's a fucking phenomenal comic for our level, saying that it's become a necessary part of my general well-being in terms of doing it,
Yeah.
not the opposite. Like I need it for for me to feel decent,
Yeah.
which is great, and more than I could ever ask for. Actually,
Which is fair enough, man, because again, it's
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 hard, man.
it's hard, but again, it's worth it.
Oh well, when you're good. I mean, if you're eating shit non-stop, I don't know how people do that. At least I get some successes, boy. Oh my god, if I was terrible, I just don't know how to do it. Really, I tell people you got to love it to do it, boy. They must really love it because shit, it ain't working out.
Yeah, you gotta like really love it.
Or really love hating yourself because
Oh
that's
God, but
tough.
again, I think it's,
Imagine, sorry,
yeah,
you just said earlier, about people that have had to stop doing it for their well being. I mean, I could never imagine doing something like this for a year or two and be already being burnt out. I mean, it must really be a testament to how people aren't manage themselves through the whole situation, and which is fair enough because you really got to understand yourself
yeah,
to manage yourself through it. But even if you're going to start this as a hobby, it is no mean feat. Like no easy feat rather. Like it is very difficult to all the time you got to spend for 5 to 10 minutes.
yeah,
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
You really got to enjoy
So
it.
well, you see, this is like, yeah, again, the people who I know, one of whom is a very good friend of mine. Um, Basically they were like, look, again, it's everything else around it that's kind of like, I remember like we used to travel in a car, like when I was in Manchester, we travel to go to like Leeds and Liverpool and friggin' Blackpool. I think one night we went to Blackpool and then it was an accident on the motorway and it took us 5 hours to get home. So it's that this is the stuff that he was like, I'm just tired of like
Yeah,
driving around. I'm just tired of doing. Although I personally think like the bit that he like I think maybe had like 10, 15 very good minutes because obviously he's only he's a very good friend of mine, Chaz. Um, they, they were some of the most like well written bits I've ever seen. Very good. He's a very good writer. But yeah, it was just everything else around where it was just like
yeah.
I can't, like I genuinely, when I sleep for 3 hours and I have to wake up to go to work and stuff like this, not for me. And I was like, fair enough,
Uh,
but
uh, have you ever played sports? We were talking about sports earlier. Have you ever
yes,
like seen?
I did a little bit. I played, yes, I played quite a few sports.
Yeah, because I used to play rugby and I follow a lot of sports and stuff. And
Yeah,
one of the things I always think about, especially when I played rugby, I played social rugby on a Saturday. You have to pay to play essentially. We're turning up in the middle of fucking winter in a shit old place in a changing room with no hot water on the worst pitch of all time just to play a game of rugby. And I watch like a lot of sports documentaries with professional athletes and stuff, and they always talk about like the game is the game, and there's everything around the game, and then there's the game. And I think it's very similar to my approach to stand up. Like there is so much stuff that goes around it that it really has to be worth playing the game. The game is the game. Like getting up on stage and doing stand up, that's the game.
yeah,
All the stuff around it is the things that you have to get through to actually get there and do the thing that you enjoy. And if you haven't got the right balance of it being an enjoyable, at least something that benefits you more than it costs,
Yeah.
you're always going to be in a good place. If it costs more than it actually benefits you from any way that you see fit, in any metric that you try and measure it against, then it's not going to be worth it. And I think ultimately the right metric is how you feel about yourself. Because I don't know, like you could be rich, successful on TV and stuff, but I know for me, if I was doing material that wasn't like up to standard, I know when I'm doing shit material, and I know when I'm murdering. Like I can bomb my ass off. Right, I tell you this, I can. I've had a lot of moments this year with it, but I can murder, and I have murdered like hard, way more than I ever thought I could. Like I've lived my dream 100 times over already because I've been able to actually, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and murdered hard. I couldn't live with myself if I felt like I was doing material that just wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, no, I think with that, doing like, because I always have this thing where I think sometimes I get really I get upset, and then maybe I take it like personally, where I see comedians going like, you say that it's either very low audience or it's just like comedians, in the audience, which again, the open mics, sometimes can happen, and then they will just like not do anything. And although, because I feel like, to me, it's a privilege for me to like to put myself in the, okay, to it's a privilege for the people listening to me, because they are thinking like, having like an basically an open door into my head and my world.
Mm.
But it's also a privilege for me to have people listen to me,
Yeah,
because that, I think this is one of the things that people don't realize, that even if it's one person, or if it's hundreds of people, tens of people, which is a more like realistic number, but yeah, that's the thing, because I did like comedy clubs where it was like I did showcases in comedy clubs and stuff like this, where like, nights for like new people, where I think, yeah, again, I think the highest stage that I've done, I think it was maybe like 500 people in the audience. And but you see, the thing is, there were 500 people that you kind of like have to try like to entertain, because they are there to be entertained. And then you always have, but then you have to remember, even when you scale this back, and that's what I was saying earlier, or like I was starting this thing, that I do get, I guess, upset, at least for a couple of minutes, when people just like go on stage and then they use that time to like do nothing
yeah,
that I find useful,
yeah,
because I'm like, then why did you like do it in the first place? Because now, sometimes I remember I went once, and it was this thing of like, oh, I've wasted my time to come here. I'm like, yeah, now you're wasting my time
yeah. I mean,
by
yeah,
going through this, when
yeah.
you could have just wasted your time.
Yeah, it can be like that, especially on the open mic circuit, innit, where you
Yeah,
can, and they think that they can just talk through it, and when you talk about it's a pleasure for people to sit there and watch you, some people really think it's a real fucking pleasure. Do you know what I mean? They
yeah,
embrace it, but um, the offset to that is where the way I convince myself otherwise is just one less person for me to compete with because that person's taking themselves out of the game. Like they're not going to be as good as me if they're going to carry on with that nonsense.
true.
They're not going to,
But you see, the thing is, when you look into a setup, it's kind of like,
and then they're going to be fucking massive, and I'm just going to be sitting here like a sour grape, like. I'm a good
but
comic.
but also, though, the thing is that, because I look at like, the way you like setting up everyone, because I also, although, I feel like this is pretty much like a, I don't know, like it's an individual sport, but also it is in a team setup, because when you go on a bill, like, obviously you gotta kill, but you also gotta, make sure that at least like you also like, I guess, perhaps like set the next person up
Yeah,
for success. Because then, if you say, like, this is what I find sometimes, where people go alienate people, and then it's kind of like ruined for the person watching,
yeah,
but then it's also ruined it for the next comics,
yeah,
because now it's such a, obviously, sometimes comedians, and I think that's what makes a pro, where you can actually get yourself out of there. But even to have to like put that extra work
mm.
for technically no reason, that's where sometimes I'm like, and also especially because, again, I'm not to that level yet.
Yeah,
When I see someone, I'm like, hey, stop. I remember a few months ago, and someone started shouting at the audience member before but it wasn't like, because I always think of that Larry David video of like him shouting at the Comedy Cellar in New York, which is amazing. But no, this guy was just like shouting at these guys for like, basically they were talking to each other, and I was like, just then entertain them if you don't want them to entertain themselves, sort of thing. But yeah, and he was just like fucking, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh god, stop. And then it was like, and next on stage, Levy, and I was like, fuck me.
Did it go okay?
It, kinda, I
Yeah.
think so. Given the circumstances, I think it went quite all right. They seemed to be happy when I went on, and they did give me some laughs. But the again, I almost like got heart palpitations from this because I was like, how do I follow this?
Yeah. See, that's what I never understand, man. I mean, I know I feel like you tried to wrap it up by saying what's my socials. Now we're going on to but I'm just going to carry on until you tell me to stop. I guess that's what I personally don't understand, and it might be because of where I'm at in life. But like the other day, I went on and the other day it was about a week or so ago. I went on after someone who I know quite well, and they didn't do particularly well, right? And this was a spot that I did, I think, earlier on this year or the back end of last, and it was the first time I'd been at this spot. It was a pro gig, an open spot though, and I remember the first time not doing that great, but it was okay. This time around, I went. This person did their set, and it was a bombing. You know, respect to them because they recognize as well that they need to put themselves in a situation to get better, which is 100% true. And I really, really, really had a good set. And it was just nice to be quite reassured by the fact that, do you know what? Like, I just kind of felt like I know I got this, and there are situations where I feel like I'm not going to be, well, because it's all about your demeanor. It's about how you come onto the stage. People are
Yeah,
there to listen to you, and you've got to own it, and you've got to stand there and show the people that you're meant to be there, and be confident with that. And that comes through gigging and just doing it more often. I felt like I've always been comfortable, so I've never been afraid of the stage. I love it. I've always embraced it. And so if I see someone that eats shit, in my mind, I'm I'm about to blow their socks off. I've had that mindset, and I've absolutely bombed my ass off, but I've absolutely done all right.
yeah.
And it happens more often the more that you do it. But I don't
Well,
get. I'm not getting stressed by someone bombing. And also, if someone does well, that's probably a little bit more scary because you're like, how am I going to follow that? If someone's bad, I can follow that because they're terrible. But if they're
that's
good,
true as well.
how do I
Yeah.
follow that?
Yeah, but I think there is a difference between being bad and then just being like borderline, again, like
Well, some people just shouldn't be on.
alienating.
Some people shouldn't be on stage. I mean, that the part of the problem with this is that it's too open entry.
True.
There's some absolute
Yeah.
lunatics that go up there and they're there for weird reasons. One of the interesting things is actually seeing how people perceive what stand-up comedy is. They go up there thinking I'm doing stand-up comedy, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But this is where it gets like, you kind of like see it, okay, it's subjective, but
Yeah.
also because I always, the way I
Yeah, but if you
see.
go onto a football pitch with a cricket bat, you're in the wrong sport.
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing though, because I think in the arts field, when there is no, because at least in football you have a set of regulations, while in arts is art, and then comedy is comedy, and then especially like when you even look at like open mics, that's even a bigger spectrum,
Oh, is it?
because you can have like improv is still comedy, although musical comedy, which although I personally
This is
I'm
going
not.
to sound harsh, but with the OM that I run, I purposely put acts in that I feel is going to be bad.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what it's for, isn't it? Where else are you going to perform?
Yeah, no, of course. Actually, that's a very healthy thing to.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good way to thinking about it.
yeah, that's what it's for.
Which is, yeah, and also, yeah, that's the thing with like open mic or like, yeah, new material. It's kind of like, yeah, it's there to try out stuff and like to see whether things work. But basically, what I was about to say was that, yeah, like now my approach or like my way of thinking is that um there is perhaps an audience which would go like, "Ah, you know what, Levi is funny." So now I just gotta like try and basically like filter that and like try and find these people who go like it's funny. But then, yeah, the thing is, most of the comedy nights that I go, whether they are semi-pro, like again, whatever level the night is, it's people who have probably, I mean, mostly and pretty much always never heard of me before. So it's for me to then give them something that's like, oh, this person sounds, like interesting. Let's see
Mm,
what else they've got.
mm.
while I think sometimes there is an excuse of like, you know, I've got to wait for people to find me. No, no, no. You gotta like, you gotta make, again. It goes back to something that we talked about earlier, where you make your own luck. Like you've got to show people why you're worth listening to and why you're worth being like coming back to. And then if say like next time when they see your name somewhere, they'll be like, oh, I know this guy, I know he's good, I'm gonna go and watch him, rather than, you know, this like hit and miss sort of thing. So you still gotta try, but
But you have to put yourself out
yeah,
there,
exactly,
you
yeah,
know.
that's the thing.
Like exposure with what doing stand up comedy is a really important thing. And like I was very conscious. I didn't want to overexpose myself on things like online.
Yeah.
People saying like you should do reels and that. What am I selling? Like a bad comic? I know I'm a year and a half in it. I know that I'm not going to be good enough to compete with people that can do that.
Yeah.
What I did expose myself to is I'll gig anywhere. Like we said earlier, when there's empty rooms, I don't give a fuck. If there's a mic there, I don't care how many people are there. My mind was like, I always want to be undeniable. Right. And I remember last year being in this one Cafe Mode. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
heard of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
You know what Cafe
yeah,
Mode is,
yeah.
right? So we're getting too like inside baseball here, but it's this gig in central London in this Italian restaurant, and it could either be full or like have no one, right? And it's in this dark little room. I did it when there was four people. It was one of the hardest murders I've ever done. Like it was great. All five of us had a fantastic time.
That's very good.
Honestly, it was
Yeah.
just great, and I was like, I just couldn't believe that. Like, but I was having a good time. I don't give a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
what am I going up there? How could you go into a room where there's no one there and be self conscious that no one's gonna laugh? Of course, no one's gonna laugh.
That's
And you're
such.
acting like it's you. Get out of here, that ain't me. I've been in rooms with people. That's because when there's people, you don't do as well as you think you should too. If there's more people, the more people that are there, the better off my comedy goes, and that's how it should fucking work.
Yeah.
You know.
That's such a good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you possibly? So all I'm gonna do, if I'm in a room where there's no one there and there's just a mic, I'm working on my things, right? That's what the open mic's for. When you get to a certain level, you don't need to worry about the open mic because that's your comfort zone. I don't need to
Yeah.
impress there anymore because my stuff is my stuff for when I go for sets that I want to impress, and I
Yeah.
have confidence in that because it's tried and tested. And so the open mic is just playtime. And then hopefully when I elevate, it kind of works its way down. But God's sake, you fucking go in the middle of nowhere with three people and be upset with yourself. You should be pissed off just for traveling.
Well, that's probably like the one of the things I find it like most upsetting. It's when I go like the traveling to a gig, or like I think I had to do, although it was amazing night. I think I did, when I went to St. Albans, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, that's £12
Yeah,
that I'm not getting back.
yeah,
Like it's, you know, just the way it is. But then again, hopefully, not hopefully, sometimes I manage to get like, oh, £20 for 10 minutes. Fuck yeah,
yeah.
you know. And the joy that I get out of it, although I think it takes me £30 to get there.
I don't watch my I'm terrible at it.
No, but I think that's with stuff like that. I'm kind of like, you know, I'm glad that I've been sober for almost like, from alcohol for almost 2 years, from smoking about a year ago. But that's the thing, because now I sometimes I also think of myself, going back to something that you said at the beginning, where we talked about like how, you know, people see you in like such a way that, oh, you've done all these like amazing things, like you're a very hard worker, but then you see yourself as a lazy person. I feel like in this situation people are like, oh my god, you're doing great, and I'm like, I think part of the reasoning why I stopped, besides of gambling, which I had I'm also a recovering addict from, basically from that as well as, but that
What
I
did you
stopped
gamble on?
because of, yeah.
What did you gamble?
Oh, what I gamble? Oh God, man, dogs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, dogs, football, or like basically on, and then online betting were just like the next best thing. And at the when I was at the bottom of the barrel as well, it was, yeah, it was dogs, and it was virtual football.
No, you're virtual. Oh my god,
And
that's when you know it's bad.
I
When
used
the
to
real
just
things.
I used to just like yeah, I used to just like sit in the bookies. I used to like skip school and just like stay in the bookies all day. But anyway, so go on.
Yeah, just it's just funny with that because I always feel like
It's not even
I've
a
always
real
been
thing.
very. No, I'm very. I've always been very close to those things. So
Yeah.
drinking, gambling. Uh, One of my best mates once described me as the most well-adjusted degenerate he's ever met. I love drinking. I love sports. I love gambling. I smoke weed all the time, but I try to keep it without going too crazy.
Interesting. Well, you see, this is the thing. Unfortunately, to me, it wasn't like that. I think I'm too, and I've noticed it, and I think this is also what's say. Look, it's helped me with the podcast. It's helped me with the comedy as well. The fact that I get obsessive over things, like, and I can't do things like half-heartedly.
Yeah,
But then obviously in the other hand is that, yeah, if I were to like start drinking, I don't just have a drink. I have to like drink myself under the table.
lad.
I
No,
have to, but it's also this is an, although I know you're an Arsenal fan, right?
yeah,
So I have Paul Merson's books over, just over there, where he talks about addiction. It was quite interesting to see it because I also I it's about what I feel, when I do this. It's about that like little like high for a moment. I think I was doing cocaine for a period of my time. And again, but I wasn't doing it for the purpose of like just I being social. I used to do it at home.
yeah, yeah,
But just the fact that I would like just like get this little like
yeah.
and I'd like, oh, okay, I'm a bit like more awake now.
Mm.
Although I would do fuck all. Like I would literally just sit on my
That's how you
couch.
feel, yeah. Yeah.
It was just like, oh wow, this is amazing. And also it would just like made me feel like numb from everything else that was going on around. So the same with the gambling. It was always the case that, for that like 10 seconds, I would like watch when the going back to something that you said earlier, I never felt more hopeful than when those cages were being open. And I've never felt as happy when I won a bet.
Oh,
But that was it. Like I've never cared about, like, it wasn't the case of the money. Like I've never, I think besides of a couple of times when I walked out of the bookies with maybe like, and again in Romania it was a bit more, but I think I walked out with maybe like almost 2 grand. But I think that the only reason why I did that is because the bookies was closing, so
yeah,
I had like to take the money and go home.
yeah,
But besides of that, I've never left with money because it wasn't about like, oh, I need to make money. I used to, and then when online gambling became a thing, I used to just like watch, like I used to watch loads of basketball games
mm,
because that was like to bet on, and I wouldn't even care what I bet on. I would just put a bet just because I wanted them to watch the game
yeah.
and feel like
Gives you a
I'm.
reason
Yeah,
to
it
be
gives me a
invested
reason
in it.
to feel good. And if I lost, then I didn't care about, oh, I gotta like recuperate the damage. It was more of a, I just want to win the next one.
You, do you know, you really do come across as someone that has your stuff together, but you are a fucking degenerate. I did not realize this. I always thought you was quite a sensible person.
I think I am now,
Yeah,
but again, it's, yeah,
it takes work.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Again, it goes to the point where, it said something earlier where, like, ultimately you kind of like have to, and I feel like, to me, yeah, I had to like make a decision. I think, look, for example, the biggest one was smoking. The only reason why I quit smoking is
Or
because
like
I
cigarettes or like weeds.
cigarettes.
Yeah,
I've never, I can't, I think because of my medication. So ever since I got like medicated for my depressive disorder and borderline, I get like really bad like hangovers.
yeah,
Like regardless, I can have a pint. I'm gonna feel like I drank like a whole brewery.
yeah, yeah,
I can have a little bit of a smoke. I feel like I just throw up and I'm being sick for
mm,
like 3 days after, regardless of, because people, oh, you gotta do the good stuff. I've done the good stuff and I
sure,
still feel like shit. It's
yeah,
just, I think again, it's just the way my body takes it now. So yeah, I had to stop. But the thing is with smoking, the only reason why I stopped is because I got like really desperate about running, and I
mm,
went to the point where like everything I was watching was like running related. I was doing everything around running, and then I've noticed that when I was running, I was breathing so much worse,
mm,
and
mm.
that's the only reason why to the date now I do like loads of skipping rope and running. And the only reason why I don't pick up smoking again is because I know how shit it makes me feel
Yeah, yeah.
when I, so again, I just basically had to like replace one addiction to another.
I hope that happens to me because I've started playing tag rugby again, and
Nice.
I've picked up a pretty strong smoking habit over the last few years, especially doing stand up. So hopefully I can kind of wean myself off. I don't think I'd ever stop smoking weed if I can help it,
Fair.
because I do think it does good stuff for me. But we'll see.
Well, you see, this is the thing. I've never
I mean, I smoked before I came here, right?
no way.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't. Again, to me, that's what I was going to say now. It doesn't make a difference because I feel like whatever works for people. And I think at one point I got really annoyed when because one of my mates was like, "Oh, you should try this," and I tried edibles because they made those like. And again, look for them, they are amazing, and like I see the benefits. But again, to me, I take it. But then the next day, oh my
Yeah.
god! Like the room. I remember the last time I had a smoke. The room was generally I couldn't get out of bed because I just felt like I was one of those spinny things,
Yeah,
you
coming
know.
in top. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't do this. I was shaking. I was, and also like, yeah, with drinking, I had 2 pints, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop now. And as I was like on the way home, I could feel the calm down from 2 pints, and I had to, yeah, and I had to go.
Hangover.
I had to go into friggin' I think I went into like a Tesco Express and I got myself like a 4 pack
Yeah.
and down two on the way home, and then
Levi lightweight.
I know, yeah. Well, you see, that was never the case. Although I'm not gonna. Although now I was a bit like I'm not lightweight.
No,
I used to drink loads, but
I'll show you right now.
yeah. But you see, that's the kind of stuff, and I'm like, fuck, man. Again, it's just not for me, unfortunately. And yeah, you kind of like
Probably for the better, to be fair.
look. I that's the
It
thing.
was a good time while you had it, but yeah,
I did because like this now is like we're going into the mental health awareness month. I think by the time this is going to come out
the
the month
nerves
will be
come.
over. There was like suicide awareness day last Tuesday, and around this time I was like thinking about a lot of stuff, and I think like I had some of my best time, like when I was on coke. Like it was friggin' awesome. But then I'm also like, but then the times after that, it was just miserable. Like I used to have, because I still I have problems with like sleeping,
Yeah.
but I used to like just not sleep for 2 3 days. But then also when I used to I could sleep after that, but then I would have the worst nightmares in the history of nightmare. Like I would wake up in like sweats and like night terrors and stuff like this, which would be even more amplified.
Mm.
And that's why I was like, fuck this. Again, although at times I was like, you know what, yeah, it's cool to be a rock star. I was like, nah, it's not for
Well,
me.
do you ever hear this things where people say, "Oh, I don't live with regrets,"
Yeah,
and I think you can take that one way or the other, and I think some people don't really know what they're saying with it. But my interpretation is that because my thing was like boozing a lot, right?
yeah,
And I never drank at home, but when I was out, it was getting shit faced, bladdered,
yeah.
and I'd had some great times. And I'd sometimes be in the middle of the dance floor by myself, looking in the sky, just being like, nothing else can be better right now, because you're just absent from your own
Yeah,
mind, innit?
yeah,
But it was still tough at those times and you're battling through things and you don't regret them because hopefully you can get yourself to a place where you can look back at it and feel like it's formative to the person that you are now if you are okay with the person that you are now, right? Like I've
yeah.
got myself to a place where I'm very satisfied with who I am. I'm not satisfied with what I'm doing in its entirety, but with myself, I can't really ask myself for much more. And I think that's kind of where you got to leave yourself, really. It's like you as an individual, can you feel as satisfied with yourself as you possibly can because of all the best efforts that you've put into yourself? And I know that all the things in my life, the circumstances, it's going to be a circumstance of life because it ain't going to be because of me. I'm going to make sure of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm going to at least give myself the best opportunity to be happy and successful. Now, if life takes that away from me, then I'm just going to have to just turn into Mad Max and kill everyone because I ain't going first.
I ain't going first. Jeez, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's weird because yeah, again, it's weird to like. I think my therapist, although I'm seeing her like every week, and we have like lovely conversations, and she was like, "Oh, you got to be careful with those thoughts," which again, it's fair enough.
Which thoughts?
The ones about like, oh, I kind of missed this, but because I think that the first like the thing is in my head when I go like, oh, I missed yeah, like a couple of last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, I missed I thought about this one time when I did the yeah, I was just like I was doing drugs and I was just like playing FIFA, and I just thought, oh my god, but that was like such a great time
Oh,
of
I
my life.
bet. I
But
bet.
then as soon as I think about that, then the next thought is, yeah, but then for 2 weeks straight, I couldn't sleep. I used to I would have to sleep with the light on in my
Yeah.
bedroom just because I generally I think at times I woke up thinking I pissed the bed. And again, I was in my early 20s, I think. Yeah, very early 20s. like, which is not. Again, all I'm saying is it's not normal for like an able-bodied person who's never had like any issues to go like, oh, I'm gonna piss the bed,
Quite.
and then to wake up and be like having to generally like having to like check between my thighs and then check the bed.
Yeah.
It's like this is too much for me.
Yeah.
I
You know.
can't. And again, at the time, that wasn't even the reason why I did it. But now look, like why I stopped. But now looking about it, I was like, yeah, I could have not.
Yeah.
Now when I was thinking about it, it's like, you know what, I could technically still do it,
Yeah.
but I was like,
Well, that's what I think because I would hate to be someone. Sorry, I need to phrase that so poorly, especially on this podcast. Um, I don't know how to phrase it. I would prefer not to be someone that would have to withhold anything
yeah,
from myself. And like at the moment, especially with the weed smoking, I've been a consistent weed smoker now for about 3, 4 years, and it is something that has affected my life and some of the people around me in terms of how they challenge me with it. And going through them things, especially if you're savvy enough and you're wise enough, you learn about yourself through it, innit? So, you know, I just want, I love smoking weed. I love having a drink. I love being able to gamble. I love all the kind of vices
yeah,
that make you enjoy life.
yeah,
And it's just, I guess for me, it's never been too bad, sort of it becoming a problem where I've had to withhold, fortunately.
yeah,
But I certainly feel like I would imagine, and, please correct me if I'm wrong from a place of ignorance, because I know addicts as well, but I would have thought that the thing you'd want to be able to attain is being able to cope and handle it rather than not ignore it but not doing it, because that's more of a safety measure. The idea is that you want to be in control as much as you can be, right?
yeah. But I think in that,
And
and
that's
again,
not to victim shame or anything like that.
no, of course, no, 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 no. But also, I was gonna. And what I'm gonna say next is like my perspective on it is that you kind of have to, because like the way I see it now is that I acknowledged that I have those things are happening, and then it's about how do you then protect yourself
Mm,
moving on.
of course.
So yeah, again, to me, when I think when I think, for example, and I was gonna say like the thing, well, actually as well. Um, Look, that's why there are people who say, look, like yourself, for example, who can like casually enjoy certain things and not have a problem. That's absolutely fine. It's more about like helping out people who are like who say feel overwhelmed by this, or not necessarily feel, but then they put themselves in positions of high risk
Yeah,
because of these things that needs to be supportive, or
of
for
course.
that you need to have something in place. But then yeah, of course, look, you have so many people who gamble very happily, who again like
Leisurely.
Las Vegas is been, is built like that, and like other places are where obviously you have, unfortunately, they theory or like there are obviously loads of like theories and loads of like studies that show that sadly some like gambling companies prey on
Oh,
the people with addiction problems. But in the other hand, there are also loads of people who just gamble because they want to gamble, and then they just go home the next day, and then they don't gamble again for a week, and then they, or like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month, whatever. But yeah, I feel like, to me, at least the way I look at it now, it's not necessarily that I have to, oh, I can't enjoy that drink, or oh, I can't do that thing. I see it more in a way of I gotta, basically, I am putting myself, I'm doing everything I can to protect myself as much as I can.
well, it's not worth it at the
Yeah,
cost because your cost is much greater than mine.
as well as that's another big thing where I'm like, again, I could have a drink, because like that's the thing now. Because I think even when I started, when I went sober, I only said that I'm gonna do it for 3 months, and then on my birthday I'm gonna
A
be
blower.
drinking. Yeah, and then my birthday came, and I was like, no, I don't really want to do it, because I don't want to then deal with the hangover. And generally, like, look, for example, in the last few months, the fact that I've been like so busy with stuff, I was genuinely, because I think I was thinking about drinking this year on my birthday, or I thought, oh, maybe my partner's birthday. But then I can't, I feel like I can't afford a hangover on the fact that I one it would my hangovers are so much worse, because I've seen it from the last couple of, like, from 2 years ago. But then yeah, in the other hand, I don't have to, like, I generally don't have 2 mornings
Yeah,
that I can wake up and feel miserable
feel
and go back to bed. I gotta wake up tomorrow,
I
and
feel
I got
good.
shit
Yeah,
to do.
well, that's just being an adult.
And I got, well, you see, that's the thing where now, although look, I have so many friends, and I used to when I was
Mm.
younger, where I could just like drink myself under the table. I once I slept in someone's bathtub, and then I just woke up the next day dressed in the same clothes and I went to work. And I pulled the entire shift, which was I think an 11 hour shift, because I was working in hospitality at the time, and then after that 11 hours I went out again before I then went home.
That's
While
crazy.
now, generally, I feel like if I have again a I have like two puffs from a
Yeah.
cigarette, I'm like I can't breathe for a week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I can't do that sort of stuff. I mean, you remember you used to go to a house party and then you'd wake up and there'd just be all these different people just lying around
Yeah.
everywhere. Like that used to be me. I've woken up in cupboards and under beds. I remember waking up under a car once. Like,
A car.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How
I've,
the
I've done it
fuck
all.
you get
It was
under
because I was outside. I'd lost my friends. It was in the middle of Essex. had
a
no
car?
clue where I was, and I think I remember thinking it's going to be the only place that's going to be warm because it was during winter,
Well, like a
and I had no
cat.
coat. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so certainly had my hardships out there on the street.
Oh
But
my god! Actually, I fell asleep on which, although I don't remember how it happened, but I passed out on a street once,
yeah,
and someone ended up like picking me up,
oh God,
and yeah, they had to like call a taxi for me. And I remember they kept asking me like, "Oh, what's your like address and stuff?" And I was like, "Just quiet, quiet."
yeah.
It's like-
No, I certainly, they were good times, but I don't miss them.
no, yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm looking now at it. I'm like, and also some of it are just great material.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't put myself again in that position.
No, not at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, like you said,
especially
I feel the
sleeping under a
hangover.
car in winter.
I couldn't fit anymore.
I mean, it depends because you can have like a SUV sort of.
All right, you're saying I'm fat now, ain't
No, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are
Bigger
cars.
cars. Yeah,
Yeah, bigger cars,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
For
yeah. No, no, it's fair enough.
fair,
Yeah,
but okay. Well, although it's been another hour almost since I
yeah. I
said,
feel I need to
oh,
plug myself again.
well, yeah, let's do it one last time. One last time. Where do people see you and stay in touch?
Yeah,
Get to like you said, you don't post reels anything like that. But yeah,
yeah.
we're just like
Follow me
your
on
social media.
Instagram at Chris_J_Ali, ALI. If you really want to follow me, follow the OM Comedy Club because that's the open mic night which I really want to push, and that's going to be growing in Islington, North London. And yeah, on YouTube is my comedy journey, Chris Ali. But you'll see that's basically my Instagram page anyway. And yeah, you can see me at all gigs in and around London, I guess.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. All this conversation, I'm about to just have a spliff now.
Perfect.
Take it easy.
Take it easy. Good, right? I mean, it was good. Yeah. Pretty. No, I can't do it. It's Larry David. I can't mess with that. But it was a good episode, right? It was a good interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording this. And look, once again, all I'm asking for you this week, and for anyone who's like actively listening to the podcast, you know that I don't usually ask for stuff. Like if you leave a review, I appreciate it, but you don't have to. If you subscribe, I appreciate it, but you don't have to. Okay. But this week, I will ask you all to check out, or again, mostly anyone from around London, check out Chris's social media and check out the OM Comedy Club, because on that bill there's also Nick, who was on a podcast a few episodes ago. And if you enjoyed that and if you want to see him as well, that's your chance. You get, it's like a double bubble. But that's everything from me. Again, I don't usually ask for stuff. I did ask this week. Now, thank you for listening. And from me, Pickle and Sarma, until next week, stay skillful. Bye.